Chapter 5065. Everyone nodded. Their first thought was that the Archaic Alliance was fighting amongst themselves. Who else could kill a Foundation establishment practitioner other than themselves? I know it wasn't you guys, but what about other people? You're not trying to say that the department is in charge of all practitioners in the common world, are you? Shui Jianfeng shook his head faintly. From what I know, there's never been anyone in the common world who's stronger than Sky-class full mastery. Saying that this has something to do with the common world doesn't make much sense. Ling Shan said, neither servile nor overbearing. This wasn't a child's play, it affected the entire common world, and she couldn't just admit it so easily. Don't be too confident. Of the two people who died in the Archaic Alliance, one was at the peak of the late Foundation establishment realm, while the other was at the late Foundation establishment realm. It's true that ordinary cultivators from the secular world wouldn't be able to kill them. However, the murderer was an anomaly, a cultivator in the form of a nascent spirit. Since the Supernatural Investigation Bureau claims to be in charge of cultivators from the secular world, I believe you should have some files on this matter, said Shui Jianfeng confidently. A primordial spirit practitioner? Ling Shan paused, and the others did as well. What's that? You guys really don't know? Shui Jianfeng looked at their blank faces, surprised. Even if you don't have accurate information, you should at least have some rumors about this practitioner, right? Nope, never heard of it. Ling Shan and the others shook their heads. Shui Jianfeng couldn't help but choke. He could tell that they weren't faking it. No matter what, we Archaic Alliance disciples who died in the common world need to be accounted for. This primordial spirit practitioner needs to be investigated, and if you guys can't figure it out, then we'll have to do it ourselves. Ling Shan's heart tightened at the words. It was obvious what the guy was implying. Things would get out of control once the Archaic Alliance started investigating this, and things would get out of control if they weren't careful. The practitioners of the common world would have to face a sudden bloodbath. After a moment of silence, Ling Shan said solemnly, the department will investigate this primordial spirit practitioner. Since the Archaic Alliance has a rule of not disturbing the common world's order, then it's best to keep it that way. Very well. I believe in Miss Song's sincerity. Shui Jianfeng nodded and didn't have the slightest intention to leave. He changed the topic and asked, you said you're the deputy chief here? I'll leave it to you to arrange a meeting with your bureau chief. I have something important to discuss with you. Chief Feng is not here. If there's anything, you can tell me directly. Ling Shan said, neither servile nor overbearing. She wasn't trying to act all high and mighty by saying this, it was just that she had more experience as a vice director. No matter what Shui Jianfeng said, it would be easier for her to deal with it as a vice director. If it was Feng Tianlong, it would be a different story. There wouldn't be any room for negotiation. Sure, let's go somewhere else then. Shui Jianfeng looked around and said. What he was going to say next was his own decision. Before it was done, he couldn't casually spread it around. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good for the higher-ups of the Archaic Alliance to hear about it. All right, please follow me. Ling Shan brought Shui Jianfeng and Fei Yangxing to the meeting room and gestured for everyone to disperse. Both sides sat down in the meeting room, and Shui Jianfeng said proudly, our sect is recruiting a few disciples this time. As long as you have enough talent in the common world, you can come with me to the Archaic Alliance. Recruiting disciples? Ling Shan paused. She thought it was some bad news, not expecting him to be recruiting disciples back to the Archaic Alliance. She let out a breath of relief. Strictly speaking, this wasn't a bad thing. Archaic Alliance wasn't on the same level as Sky-class Island, but it was still much stronger than the common world. But compared to the secular world, it was still much better. If there was such a chance, many practitioners in the secular world would be overjoyed. That's right. Of course, we're very strict when it comes to selecting people. Normal practitioners don't even enter our sites, but you, Miss Song, naturally meet the requirements. As long as you come with me, I'm sure you'll be able to reach Foundation establishment in no time. Even reaching my level isn't impossible. Shui Jianfeng said with a "I'm taking care of you" face. As far as he was concerned, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the common world practitioners. After all, the path to the Archaic Alliance would only open again after 1,000 years. If they missed this chance, they'd have to continue struggling in the common world where the qi was thin. They wouldn't be able to advance even if they died. As long as one wasn't an idiot, they'd know what to choose between the common world and the Archaic Alliance. This girl he was drooling over clearly wasn't an idiot. Ling Shan's reaction, however, made his jaw drop. She didn't hesitate at all. "I appreciate your good intentions, sir, but I've never planned on leaving the common world." If she really wanted to, she would have gone to Sky Class Island with Lin Yi. Why would she go to the Archaic Alliance? What? Shui Jianfeng thought he'd heard wrongly, frowning as he looked at Ling Shan's serious face. "Miss Song, you might not understand the difference between the Archaic Alliance and the common world. Let me put it this way, with the qi and resources of the common world, Sky Class full mastery is the limit you can reach. It doesn't matter if you're talented or not, but if you come with me to the Archaic Alliance, with the density of qi and resources there, you'll be able to reach the next level without a hitch. Think about the difference before you speak." As far as he was concerned, all practitioners would do everything they could to increase their strength, and some would even kill their loved ones for it. There was no way Ling Shan wouldn't do something like that, unless she was out of her mind. "It's fine, I've thought about it." "Thank you," Ling Shan rejected decisively. Seeing that Ling Shan was a rare beauty, Shui Jianfeng purposely lowered his attitude, but now that he was rejected, his face darkened. "Miss Song, my sect is one of the top sects in the Archaic Alliance. With my help, you'll have a great training environment. This is something no one else can give you. This concerns your future, and it's best if you don't make a decision casually, or you'll regret it for the rest of your life." Chapter 5066. Ling Shan couldn't help but frown. She'd already said that she wasn't going, so why was this guy still bugging her? Was everyone in the Archaic Alliance like this? She had to go if they liked her, and she couldn't even say no? Wasn't that a little too overbearing? "You don't have to make a decision in a rush. We won't be returning to the Archaic Alliance for a while anyway. You can tell me your answer the next time I come. I believe that Miss Song is a smart person, and you won't disappoint me." Shui Jianfeng put away his anger and smiled faintly. He also knew that he couldn't push her too hard. After all, going too far was as bad as not going far enough. He guessed that the reason why the other party rejected him was because it was too sudden and she wasn't mentally prepared. She might even have doubts about what he said before. When the other party figured out all these things, she would naturally know what to do. Ling Shan didn't say anything, but since the guy had already put it that way, she couldn't go back on her attitude. She could drag this out for as long as she could, and she'd just reject him when the time came. The most important thing right now was to find someone to discuss a countermeasure with, just in case she got caught off guard by the Archaic Alliance. "I'll be taking my leave then. I hope Miss Song can think about this. Oh, right, don't forget about the spirit practitioner," Shui Jianfeng said with Fei Yangsheng as he left. It seemed like he was surprisingly easy to talk to, but Jianfeng was actually taking a step back in order to advance. To be honest, he didn't believe that the department would be able to find that spirit practitioner. This way, he'd come back in a few days and he'd be able to use this as a pretext. At that time, he'd just have to make things difficult for Ling Shan, and she'd have to listen to him obediently. At the same time, he'd find some decent practitioners from the common world and bring them along. These people probably wouldn't have the guts to go against the Archaic Alliance, and they'd probably be overjoyed. After all, people like Ling Shan who rejected his invitation were rare. Ling Shan breathed a sigh of relief after the two left the department. The others weren't in the mood to do anything anymore, and they surrounded her to ask about the situation. "Do your job well. After I report to Chief Feng, you will naturally know what you need to know." Ling Shan waved everyone away and called Tianlong, telling him everything that had happened. Tianlong was still out of town on a business trip, and wouldn't be back anytime soon, so she could only contact him through the phone. Yeah, I've heard about the primordial spirit cultivators, but it's surprising that they want to recruit disciples from the common world, Feng Tianlong said after listening to the story. What do we do? Ling Shan asked. How about this, you arrange for everyone to focus on the Yuan spirit cultivator. Although this might be a lie, we still have to investigate it. We can't let them use this as a pretext, Feng Tianlong ordered. Yes. Ling Shan replied. As for the second thing, we definitely can't give them the information on the practitioners in the common world if they have ulterior motives. The consequences will be unimaginable. But we can't just leave them be. We'll find some time to go through the list and do an internal screening. We'll pick out the ones with the highest potential, and we'll act according to the circumstances, Tianlong said after some thought. All right, I'll arrange it right away. Ling Shan hung up and gathered all the members of the investigation department, starting a targeted search for the practitioner. Everyone knew that the chances were slim, but they had no choice but to try as much as they could in a situation like this. After making the arrangements, Ling Shan didn't stay in the department and went to the villa in the Shuishang district. She had to report this to Chen Tian and the others. Chen Tian and the others jumped in fright when they received the news, dropping everything they were doing without hesitation. By the time Ling Shan pushed open the door, everyone was already there. What Ling Shan didn't know was that after she walked in, two figures appeared in the bushes not far behind her. It was Shui Jianfeng and Fei Yangsheng. With their strength, it was a piece of cake for them to follow someone in the common world. Even a sky class like Ling Shan wouldn't be able to detect them. Interesting, there's actually so many sky class masters in this place. Looks like this Ling Shan's background isn't simple at all. No wonder she rejected my invitation. Shui Jianfeng rubbed his chin with interest. The great circle of the heaven realm was already the peak of the secular world's strength, and a large number of them had gathered in this room. They were practically invincible existences in the secular world. Senior Brother Shui, should we go in? Fei Yangsheng asked. Go in? What for? Capture them on the spot? We're here to recruit disciples, not kidnap. Use your brain. Shui Jianfeng glanced at him faintly. Some of them look quite talented. Let's write them down first, we'll just ask for them next time. Yes, Senior Brother Shui, you're the wise. With Senior Brother Shui here personally, these disciples will definitely be much better than the other sections. The head will definitely remember this, Senior Brother Shui, Fei Yangsheng said respectfully. Shui Jianfeng's face immediately became a bit more complacent. He didn't do this for the sake of making a contribution. More importantly, once he brought these disciples back, they would naturally become part of his faction. To an ambitious person like him, the benefits were self-evident. All right, we should get down to proper business. The occult investigation department won't be able to find that Yuan practitioner by themselves. We'll need the people from the Archaic Alliance, Shui Jianfeng said as he left with Fei Yangsheng. In the villa, Ling Shan and the others didn't notice anything at all. After hearing Ling Shan's details, they all fell silent, worried. These people are all sky practitioners. This is a bit troublesome, Chen Tian frowned. Yeah, this Archaic Alliance popped out of nowhere, and it's completely different from Sky Class Island. These people aren't on the same level as us at all. We won't be able to handle them with our strength, Yu Bing said solemnly. Chapter 5067. If only Lin Yi Bro was here, he'd have a way, Ziyu said suddenly. That's for sure, with boss Lin Yi's strength, that Shui Jianfeng isn't even worthy of carrying his shoes, and he's acting all high and mighty, asking sis-in-law Ling Shan to come with him. He's just asking to die, Kang Xiaobo said angrily. But we don't have a way to contact Lin Yi boss right now. Even if we wanted to write him a letter, we wouldn't be able to get him to come back, Chen Tian smiled bitterly. Water from afar can't quench thirst right now, we can only rely on ourselves for this. Right, we need to tell Senior Lin Dongfang as well, maybe he'll have a way. Chikuan slapped his forehead. Right. Everyone nodded. Lin Dongfang's performance last time had left a deep impression on them. Dealing with a couple of sky class full mastery was like child's play to him. Maybe he'd have a way to deal with this as well. Also, sis-in-law Ling Shan, the spirit practitioner you mentioned just now, it sounds like the Archaic Alliance came up with an excuse, but if it's true, we might be able to do something about it, Chen Tian said thoughtfully. What do you mean? Ling Shan didn't understand, and the others looked confused as well. Think about it, this Archaic Alliance is coming at us aggressively, and with our strength in the common world, we have no way to fight back at all. Even if they have a rule that says they can't disturb the order of the common world, rules are dead, and people are alive. As long as one of them wants to disturb the common world, they can just find an excuse to do so easily. That Shui Jianfeng is the one doing it, isn't he? Chen Tian said. That's right, it's obvious that he's using this as an excuse, Ling Shan nodded. Using the fact that 2 disciples of the Archaic Alliance had died as an excuse to barge into the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. Not only did he force the secular world to investigate, he even took the opportunity to suggest recruiting disciples with outstanding aptitudes from the secular world. He even wanted Shui Jianfeng to leave with him. It could be seen that Shui Jianfeng's focus wasn't on this primordial spirit cultivator. This was purely an excuse. So, looking at the big picture, it's not just us, but all the practitioners in the common world are faced with 2 choices. One is to submit to the Archaic Alliance's tyranny and do whatever they say, Chen Tian analyzed. Isn't that too infuriating? Ling Shan and the others frowned, they weren't as strong as them, but this was the common world. What right did the Archaic Alliance have to call the shots here? That's right, it's infuriating. If there's pressure, there'll be resistance. It'd be fine if the Archaic Alliance chose to go easy on us, but if they find an excuse to force things, I'm sure most of the powers in the common world won't be satisfied, especially the ancient sects and noble houses. Yu Bing nodded. It wasn't hard to understand, it was better to be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. These people used to be the masters of the common world, but suddenly they had to bend their knees and listen to someone else's orders. This wasn't something they could get used to in a short amount of time. Unless the Archaic Alliance went all out and massacred all the powers in the common world, that was the only way they'd be able to intimidate everyone. Fortunately, there weren't any signs of that happening yet. Then we only have the second option, of course. We don't have the strength to do that, so we can only try our best to work with them on an equal footing instead of obeying them without any principles. Chen Tian sighed. Equal footing? Is that even possible? Everyone couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. The premise of an equal cooperation was that both sides had to be on the same level. Although there were many cultivation powers in the mortal world, and all of them added together could be considered huge, they paled in comparison to the Archaic Alliance. There was practically no comparison. It doesn't sound very reliable, but it's not impossible if you think about it. Think about it, if the Supernatural Investigation Bureau were to unite all the powers in the common world, everyone would be on the same side. Even the Archaic Alliance wouldn't be able to let their guard down, right? Chen Tian said. That's right. That's a good suggestion. Usually, it's not very practical to unite all the powers, but this is a special situation. The Occult Investigation Department might be able to take the lead, Yu Bing agreed. All right, I'll discuss this with Chief Feng. We'll do it as soon as possible. Ling Shan nodded, but was still a little worried. But even so, our individual strength is still too far away from the Archaic Alliance. It'll be hard for us to fight for the right to speak, right? After all, strength determined the right to speak. Being strong in the common world, they could at most guarantee a chance to talk, but when it came to specific matters, their individual strength wouldn't have the right to speak, and they'd still be at a disadvantage. To put it bluntly, a group of kids wouldn't be able to change their weak position in front of the adults. Even if they fought on the spot, they'd only get beaten up. Even if they fought for a chance to talk, they'd still be led by the nose by the adults. What if that primordial spirit practitioner is one of us? Chen Tian asked. Everyone froze at the words, only reacting after a long while. Yu Bing clapped his hands. Old Wu, you're good. Not bad, not bad. If that primordial spirit practitioner really exists, then he's definitely not from the Archaic Alliance. He's very likely a part of the common world, it's just that we've never paid attention to him before. Plus, he has a grudge with the Archaic Alliance, so it shouldn't be too hard to get him on our side. Since this primordial spirit practitioner can kill 2 of them, he must be very strong. I'm sure he'll be a threat even to them. That'll make things easier. Chikuin nodded. This was like a group of children suddenly appearing out of nowhere and being able to beat up the adults. Even if the adults still had the advantage, at least they wouldn't dare to be as unscrupulous as before. After all, if they really forced the other party into a corner, they would flip the table and get beaten up. You're right, even if we can't find this primordial spirit practitioner, we still have Senior Lin Dongfang. At least we'll be able to hold the fort. Kang Xiaobo added. Chapter 5068. Lin Yi wouldn't know whether he should laugh or cry if he'd heard this discussion, but he'd really have to give them a big thumbs up for their foresight. It had been 3 years, and Ling Shan and the others had matured quite a bit. They were able to keep their cool in a situation like this, and their strategies were organized. They were starting to look like generals now. After the discussion, unless there was something urgent, everyone else stayed in the villa. This was a critical time, and it wasn't enough to just leave 1 or 2 people behind. They had to gather everyone's strength to defend the villa. After all, the Archaic Alliance's people were all Sky Dao practitioners, and any one of them would be powerful. Just the few of them alone wouldn't be enough. Ling Shan, on the other hand, went back to the investigation department to look for the primordial spirit practitioners while discussing with Tianlong. They were preparing to form an alliance of the common world sects, and the first thing she needed to do was to contact the ancient sects and warn them not to get into conflict with the Archaic Alliance. At the same time, she wanted to test out what the alliance would be like. The reactions of the ancient sects were almost the same. Other than expressing their gratitude to the Supernatural Investigation Bureau for the reminder, they were somewhat ambiguous about the matter of unifying the front line. They also knew that at this point, uniting was the best choice, but after all, it was a matter of great importance, and the sects had to discuss it for a while. The most important thing was, who would be the leader after unifying the front line? In any alliance in the history of practitioners, fighting for power and profit was the mainstream. The investigation department was the best choice, and there wouldn't be much opposition from the common world or the hidden world, but these ancient sects were different. It was impossible to make them lower their heads unless someone as strong as Lin Yi came out. Ling Shan couldn't help but feel a little impatient at this rate. She didn't know how long it'd take for them to form a united front, especially if the Archaic Alliance found out about this and split them up. That'd be even more troublesome. What Ling Shan didn't expect was that the Archaic Alliance was already making their move before she even had the chance to sound out the ancient sects. What? Something happened to Snowy Valley? Chen Tian and the others were shocked. I'm not too sure about the specifics, but they said that 2 Sky Dao practitioners came to cause trouble, wanting to forcefully take away the talented disciples from Snowy Valley. They got into a fight, and many people from Snowy Valley were heavily injured. Ling Shan said solemnly. A Heavenly Dao realm expert? That means he's from the Archaic Alliance. As expected, he's ambitious. Everyone was filled with righteous indignation. Another message popped up, and Ling Shan's face changed drastically as she looked at it. Tang Yan's mother's injured as well. Those bastards. Everyone paled in fright, and a surge of anger filled the villa. Mrs. Tang had nothing to do with them, but she was Lin Yi's mother-in-law. Lin Yi had asked them to guard the house, and they couldn't even protect Mrs. Tang. How were they supposed to face Lin Yi in the future? No, we can't take this lying down. Let's go to Snowy Valley. Chen Tian said furiously. Alright, so what if it's the Archaic Alliance, so what if they're Sky Dao practitioners? As long as we fight with our lives on the line, we'll have a chance. The others were furious as well. But what about Meng Yao and the others? Ling Shan frowned. She couldn't take this lying down, but if they acted rashly and left Meng Yao and the others with no one to take care of them, it'd be too late for regrets. They looked at each other, and were about to discuss when a voice came from the second floor. Are you talking about those unconscious beauties upstairs? Don't worry, just follow me to the Archaic Alliance. Everyone was shocked and they saw this person walking down the stairs. They surrounded him as if they were facing a great enemy. Chintian shouted coldly, "Who are you? How did you get in here? Who am I? Didn't she introduce you?" After saying that, the newcomer calmly sat down on the sofa, not paying attention to the group of heaven-rank Great Perfection heaven-rank experts. Everyone turned to Lingshan, and her face was filled with shock and rage. Shui Jianfeng. She gritted her teeth. Chintian and the others felt even more pressured. None of them expected Shui Jianfeng to appear in the villa all of a sudden, even walking down from the second floor. All these sky-class masters didn't even notice him at all. This strength was truly frightening. Why are you here? What did you do to Meng Yao and the others? Lingshan asked, giving Ziyu and the others a look. Ziyu and the others rushed up to the second floor to check. Don't worry, I'm still a big disciple of the Archaic Alliance. I'm not that despicable. Those women are unconscious, what can I do to them? Shui Jianfeng said faintly. Is that so? Lingshan and the others didn't really believe him. It wasn't until Ziyu and the others went downstairs and made sure that Meng Yao and the others weren't touched, that they breathed out in relief. Okay, I can answer your first question now. Why am I here? The reason is simple, I couldn't find you in the investigation department, so naturally, I had to come here myself. Shui Jianfeng said proudly. Lingshan couldn't help but jump. As slow as she was, she'd already realized that she was being followed by this bastard. Lingshan couldn't help but feel very vexed. She really was too careless. She knew that this guy was up to no good, and yet she still walked right into the villa. If something were to happen, she wouldn't be able to forgive herself even if she died 10,000 times. Actually, she was just overthinking things. With Shui Jianfeng's strength, it was extremely easy for him to follow anyone here. Unless she didn't come to the villa to meet with everyone, this was the inevitable result, and she couldn't be blamed at all. Alright, since you're here, give us an explanation. Last time you said that you wouldn't disturb the order of the common world, but now? Don't tell me you don't know what your Archaic Alliance did to Shuigu? Lingshan said angrily. Chapter 5069. What do you mean? Lingshan and the others all frowned. There's a lot of archaic sects coming to the common world for training, and I don't know which sect did this Shuigu thing you're talking about, but I'm sure that it has nothing to do with us. Shui Jianfeng's tone was as if he had nothing to do with this matter. He then said, you see, my temper can be considered very mild. I even gave you such a long time to consider the matter of the disciple selection. The others are all directly asking for you. Have you thought it through? I've said it before, I'm definitely not going to Archaic Alliance. What you're doing has already broken the order of the common world. Do you want to be enemies with all the sects in the common world? Lingshan said forcefully. Enemies with the common world? Shui Jianfeng said with a surprised look on his face. What nonsense are you talking about, Miss Song? All the sects in the common world added together aren't even as strong as any of the archaic sects, so there's no possibility of us being enemies at all. Our Archaic Alliance has never seen the common world as an enemy, or the common world would have been destroyed long ago. So you're saying that the Archaic Alliance doesn't care about the common world at all, and whenever you see a disciple with good potential, you just take them away. Is that what you're trying to say? Chintian said in a low voice. That's a bit harsh, but the meaning isn't wrong. It's just that some people are a bit more extreme in this, and I'm a bit more gentle. That's why I'm trying to reason with you guys. Shui Jianfeng nodded indifferently. He glanced at everyone and said, I see that your group's aptitude is pretty good. It's quite rare to be able to cultivate to the great circle of the heaven realm in such a lousy place like the mortal world. How about this, all of you follow me back to the Ancient Alliance. That way, you can look out for each other. Miss Song, is that fine? Everyone paused. This guy really knew how to take advantage of the situation. Not only did he want to take Lingshan, but he also wanted to take them. Oh, and those unconscious beauties upstairs, you can bring them back to Archaic Alliance as well. I don't think you guys can cure them, but I have a way, but it has to be in Archaic Alliance. What do you think? Xue Jianfeng said. You can cure them? Lingshan and the others couldn't help but feel overjoyed. Meng Yao and the girls' conditions hadn't worsened in these 3 years, but they weren't getting any better either. Who knew what would happen if this went on? If there was a chance to cure them, it'd be great. Of course, what the secular world can't do doesn't mean that the Archaic Alliance can't. Xue Jianfeng pretended to be profound. Really? Then why don't you tell me why Meng Yao Sis and the others are unconscious? Ziyu interrupted. Ugh, this. Xue Jianfeng was at a loss for words. He didn't know why Meng Yao and the other girls were unconscious at all. As for the Archaic Alliance being able to cure them, that was bullshit. The only reason he said that was to trick the girls back to the Archaic Alliance. Don't look at how all the girls were unconscious, each and every one of them was devastatingly beautiful. When Xue Jianfeng entered just now, he took a glance at them and immediately drooled with desire. Thus, he couldn't help but have the thought of building a harem. If he brought all these beauties back, that scene would simply make him unable to stop even thinking about it. See, I knew you were a liar. Ziyu crossed her arms and smiled coldly. Lingshan and the others reacted as well, glaring at Xue Jianfeng. They were too worried, and seeing his expression, they knew that he was up to no good. I, Xue Jianfeng, the number one of the young generation in Archaic Alliance, didn't think that I'd be called a liar in the secular world. It seems like it's really hard to be a good person. I've been telling you guys so much, but it's useless. I guess I'll have to learn from the other sections. Xue Jianfeng's face changed. What do you want? Lingshan and the others said warily. What do I want? Needless to say, I'll take you away forcefully today. I'd like to see who dares to say no. Xue Jianfeng's embarrassment turned into rage, and his attitude changed as he reached out to grab Lingshan. Lingshan panicked at the sight, quickly retreating to dodge. Qintian and the others all charged forward, but their speed couldn't compare to Xue Jianfeng's full mastery. With just a bit of strength, Xue Jianfeng was already at Lingshan's side, grabbing her arm. I'll take you back to Archaic Alliance right now. Let's see who can stop me. Xue Jianfeng laughed loudly. But before he could finish laughing, the person he grabbed looked at him like he was a pervert. Oi, men shouldn't touch each other, please behave yourself. What? Xue Jianfeng froze. The voice belonged to a man, and it turned out that he wasn't grabbing Lingshan at all. It was a man's arm, and this person wasn't even in the villa at all. Who are you? You want to steal my girlfriend, but you don't even know who I am? Is that appropriate? Lin Yi smiled faintly. Lin Yi. Lingshan and the others froze, rubbing their eyes and even pinching themselves to make sure they weren't dreaming before rushing up to Lin Yi. Never in their wildest dreams would they have thought that Lin Yi would come back at a time like this. Guys, I'm back. Leave the rest to me. Lin Yi turned around with a smile. He had a lot of things he wanted to say, but it was better to get rid of this fly first. He's a sky practitioner from Archaic Alliance. You have to be careful, boss. Everyone was excited and overjoyed, but they still remembered the threat that was Xue Jianfeng. Otherwise, they would have charged up and surrounded Lin Yi already. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Lin Yi smiled, not minding it. In fact, it was thanks to Fei Yangsheng that he was able to rush back in time this time. Originally, he would not have come back so quickly. On the way, he planned to use the spiritual sense energy of that piece of coke to restore his strength. However, after discovering that Fei Yangsheng had come to the villa through the spiritual sense imprint last time, he immediately knew that something was wrong, so he gave up on his plan to rush back as soon as possible. Chapter 50-70. That's right. Not only is he their boss, but he's also the dumb girl's boyfriend. Lin Yi winked at Ling Shan, and Ling Shan looked at him with wide eyes. She was pleasantly surprised, but also filled with sweetness. Dumb girl? Xue Jianfeng paused and saw the sweet look on Ling Shan's face as she looked at Lin Yi. He couldn't hold back his anger and smiled coldly. I don't care what kind of bullshit boyfriend you are, I'm taking Miss Song with me today. Anyone who tries to stop me will die. With that, Xue Jianfeng's body flashed once more as he pounced towards Ling Shan, only to bump into Lin Yi, who had suddenly appeared in front of him. His face changed drastically as he staggered, barely managing to stop himself. Your archaic alliance isn't a gangster alliance, is it? Why are all of you like this, trying to steal the good stuff, fuck the pretty girls? We're all civilized people, can't we have some morals? Lin Yi said, speechless. You're calling me a gangster? Xue Jianfeng's face was green. That's right, and I don't have a good temper. My hands always itch when I see gangsters, so there's no helping it. I'll have to trouble you. Lin Yi said as he took a step forward and slapped Jianfeng's face. Slap. The slap was crisp and clear, and Jianfeng couldn't help but be stunned. He touched the red palm print on his face in disbelief, his expression turning savage. You dare hit me? Didn't anyone teach you to hit people to death? You're so weak, you don't even know how to hit people. The common world is full of trash. Oh. You think I'm weak? This is the first time I've heard such a ridiculous request in my life. You're from the Archaic Alliance, after all, and I wanted to save you some face. Since that's the case, I won't hold back. Lin Yi shrugged and slapped him again. Bang! Jianfeng fell down on the spot, his entire body sinking into the floor, unable to get up for a long time. Hee, it seems the Archaic Alliance isn't that great. They can't even take a beating. How can they be so thin-skinned? Lin Yi smiled faintly. He hadn't been idling on the train for the past 2 days. With the help of the starring charcoal's majestic divine sense energy, his strength had already risen to the great circle of Foundation establishment. Dealing with Xue Jianfeng, who was also at the great circle of Foundation establishment, couldn't be any easier. Even though his current primordial spirit could not fight enemies of a higher level than his main body, it was still an invincible existence in front of experts of the same level as him. However, what made Lin Yi a little regretful was that he didn't know why his strength had stopped at the Foundation establishment great perfection. It was almost impossible for him to recover to the gold core stage. He didn't know what was missing. Fortunately, for now, the strength of the Foundation establishment great perfection was enough. Ling Shan and the others cheered at the scene. They had absolute confidence in Lin Yi's strength, but Xue Jianfeng was no ordinary person. Even they didn't expect this Sky Dao practitioner to be so weak in front of Lin Yi. It took him a long time to get up, and he quickly took a few steps back when he saw Lin Yi in front of him. Just who are you? He's that primordial spirit practitioner. Sun Baimei and the others died in his hands. Fei Yangsheng, who'd been waiting outside, rushed in after hearing the commotion. Primordial spirit practitioner? It wasn't just Xue Jianfeng, but Ling Shan and the others as well. How did Lin Yi become a primordial spirit practitioner all of a sudden? Fei Yangsheng, you really aren't afraid of death. I was merciful last time and let you off the hook. You dare come again? Lin Yi glanced at him. Fei Yangsheng almost pissed his pants. If it weren't for Xue Jianfeng, he'd probably be kneeling on the spot. Please don't misunderstand, Senior, I didn't want to come, it's Senior Brother Xue, what did you say? Xue Jianfeng was enraged when he heard that. He wanted nothing more than to cripple this spineless Fei Yangsheng. He pointed at Lin Yi and snorted coldly, I was just careless and underestimated my opponent. You can't possibly think that a mortal Yuanshan like you can be my opponent, can you? Is that so? I also think that you're ridiculously weak, an embarrassment to the Archaic Alliance. Are you ready then? You're not careless, are you? Lin Yi looked at him with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. Humph, you're nothing but an ant when I get serious. I'm the number one of the Archaic Alliance's younger generation. You have no right to be cocky in front of me. Shui Jianfeng humphed coldly. All right, I'll take that as a sign that you're ready. Lin Yi's expression was strange as he smiled faintly. In the next instant, he suddenly appeared in front of Shui Jianfeng, raising his hand and giving him another slap. Shui Jianfeng was startled. With his strength, he didn't even see how Lin Yi got there, and by the time he reacted, Lin Yi's slap was already on his face. He didn't even have a chance to dodge before he fell to the ground again. You said you didn't use enough strength the first time, and you said you weren't ready the second time. What excuse do you have for the third time? Lin Yi looked at him, calm and unruffled. Ling Shan and the others couldn't help but burst out laughing at the scene. They'd all been pressured by Shui Jianfeng to the point where they couldn't even breathe, and now Lin Yi was back and things turned out like this. How satisfying. It took Shui Jianfeng a long time to crawl up from the ground with great difficulty. The 3 consecutive slaps were all on the right side of his face. At this moment, the right side of his face was already very swollen. Even his mother wouldn't be able to recognize his pig face. You. Just who are you? Shui Jianfeng would be an idiot if he still didn't realize that he'd run into someone strong. The first 2 times he'd been able to use carelessness as a cover, but the third time was a different story. He had clearly dodged with all his strength, but an indescribably powerful and mysterious true qi suddenly pressed him to the ground, and even the true qi in his body was forcibly suppressed to the point of disorder. The key point was, he could vaguely hear a low and deep dragon roar. This result left him horrified. His opponent seemed to have the aura of a peak foundation establishment cultivator, while he was clearly the strongest peak foundation establishment cultivator in the Archaic Alliance. But in front of this person, he didn't have the slightest ability to fight back. Just where did this person come from? He couldn't possibly be from the mortal world, could he? Chapter 50-71. Don't go too far. Shui Jianfeng held his right cheek, raging. His left cheek, which was the only part that wasn't damaged, was now green and red. He saw that Lin Yi was about to slap him again, and he quickly retreated 10 meters away. Luckily, the living room was big enough, or he wouldn't be able to escape. Go too far? You're the one who's going to steal my girlfriend, and you still have the face to say that? Lin Yi was amused at the look on his face. He crooked his finger. Come here, I promise I won't kill you. Humph, we don't know who's going to kill who yet. Snow sword, unsheath. Shui Jianfeng roared, and a soft sword that was wrapped around his waist was unsheathed, piercing towards Lin Yi at a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. The surrounding temperature dropped drastically, and everyone had goosebumps all over their bodies. Shui Jianfeng wasn't just for show, after all. His title as the strongest Foundation Perfection Practitioner in the Archaic Alliance wasn't just for show. Other than the difference in strength, he was also trying to numb Lin Yi's senses. Now that his qi was flowing smoothly again, he revealed his true strength. Ling Shan and the others were all shocked at the scene. This guy could actually control a sword from afar. This was a legendary skill. They all broke out in cold sweat for Lin Yi. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't feel anything at all. As long as the qi release was strong enough, controlling a sword from afar wasn't difficult at all. The sword technique was the deciding factor. Shui Jianfeng was just a Foundation Perfection Practitioner, and to Ling Shan and the others, he was nothing in Lin Yi's eyes. He'd seen Lu Ziyu's sword skills with his own eyes, and compared to him, this Shui Jianfeng wasn't even worth looking at. He wasn't even worthy of his attention. However, for some reason, Shui Jianfeng's sword technique gave him a feeling of déjà vu, as if he had seen it somewhere before. However, he couldn't think of a reason, and could only shake his head. The flexible sword pierced straight towards Lin Yi's face. If it was Lin Yi's original body, even if he let it stab freely, Shui Jianfeng's sword probably wouldn't be able to break through his Jinqi defense. However, Lin Yi was only a primordial spirit of Foundation Establishment Great Circle. Even if he had the upper hand in terms of strength, he didn't dare to be so careless. Lin Yi's figure flashed and reappeared. In an instant, he had easily thrown the flexible sword behind him. Then, he did not stop and directly pounced towards Xue Jianfeng, who was in the opposite corner of the wall. He raised his hand as if he was going to give him another slap. "Wait, aren't you afraid that I'll kill them?" Xue Jianfeng smiled viciously. He was still in the air, and while it was difficult to kill Lin Yi, if he were to change his target to Lingshan and the others, he'd definitely be able to kill them all. Lingshan and the others' faces changed when they heard that. With their strength, there was indeed no way they could dodge. All of them started cursing the guy for being shameless. "Humph, you guys forced me to do this, refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit." Xue Jianfeng laughed coldly as he pointed at Lin Yi. "If you really think there's something, you'd better kneel down and apologize. Who knows, I might let them go. Otherwise, humph." He didn't expect that Lin Yi wouldn't care at all, slapping him in the face without hesitation, not forgetting to mock him. "It's not wrong to have a low IQ, but if you have to come out and embarrass yourself, then that's your fault." This guy was a madman. Xue Jianfeng jumped in fright at the scene. He thought that Lin Yi wouldn't just let these women and lackeys be slaughtered. Even if it was just an act to win their hearts, he'd at least be able to find a chance. Who would have thought that Lin Yi didn't care about these people's lives at all? "Fine, since you're forcing me to die, then I'll let all of them die with me." Xue Jianfeng gritted his teeth and swore. He tried his best to dodge Lin Yi's slaps while controlling his flexible sword to start a massacre. But in the next moment, he suddenly froze. Where was his flexible sword? Bam! Without any suspense, Xue Jianfeng fell to the ground with another slap from Lin Yi. This guy was still searching for his soft sword with all his might, and finally found a pile of scattered metal shards on the ground. His mind went blank as he mumbled in disbelief. How did this happen? He'd been manipulating the sword from a distance, and the speed of the sword was so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. Lin Yi had only dodged the first slash, and then came straight at him. How did the sword break like this? Hard to understand. Such a normal sword technique, and you're playing with it from afar? I can just use a wave of killing intent to take care of it. This isn't your trump card, is it? Lin Yi curled his lips as he looked at Xue Jianfeng's soulless face. Xue Jianfeng spat out a mouthful of blood, furious and shocked. He'd suffered too much today. Why do I suddenly feel like this guy's a bit pitiful? Ziyu's lips curled up. He's kicked a metal board, acting all high and mighty in front of boss Lin Yi. Doesn't he know how to look at himself in a puddle of piss? Does he really think he can act all high and mighty in Archaic Alliance? That's like he hasn't seen the world. Serves him right, Chen Tian grinned. The others all laughed as well. It was indeed frightening, but Lin Yi dealt with it so effortlessly. Such a miraculous move made them all excited. Lin Yi smiled as well. It had been 3 years, and they hadn't changed at all. He couldn't help but feel emotional as he thought of the girls on the second floor. 3 years had passed, and he still hadn't found a way to cure them. His strength had increased a lot, but he still hadn't seen Zhang Liju. How much longer could they wait for him? While everyone was talking and laughing, Xue Jianfeng, who was on the ground, suddenly moved. However, this time, he did not think of a desperate counterattack. That was simply wishful thinking. At this moment, he only had one thought, and that was to escape from this villa. He was giving it his all to run for his life. He shot out like a cannonball towards the nearest window. Lingshan and the others gasped. If Xue Jianfeng were to make it back and add fuel to the fire in front of the Archaic Alliance, it had become a world war between the Archaic Alliance and the Common World sects. Chapter 5072. Since you're so dishonest, I'll have to be a bit more ruthless to keep you in line. Lin Yi smiled coldly as he stomped down on Xue Jianfeng, who screamed in pain. His entire body was in shock. Lin Yi's stomp didn't just cause him pain, it crushed his dantian. Even the strongest practitioner would be a cripple if their dantian was destroyed. Shui Jianfeng's life would be over if he didn't have some sort of miracle in the future. The cries of pain didn't stop, and even the security guards were alerted. Lin Yi picked up a piece of cloth and stuffed it into Shui Jianfeng's mouth, and only then did Shui Jianfeng calm down. He lay on the ground in despair, not moving an inch. There was no longer any of the confidence and arrogance he had before. Even his eyes were filled with despair. Dumb girl, get someone to bring him back to the secret investigation department and lock him up. Use whatever methods you need, and get as much information as you can about the Archaic Alliance. See what they're up to, there's no need to go easy on scum like him. Lin Yi turned to Ling Shan. Oh. Ling Shan was just staring blankly at Lin Yi, only coming back to herself when everyone's weird gazes landed on her. She quickly used the excuse of making a phone call to hide. You're a vice director now, but you're still so dumb after 3 years. Lin Yi smiled, speechless. His eyes landed on Fei Yangsheng. Fei Yangsheng was scared out of his wits. Yin Jiping and Sun Baimei had been killed by Lin Yi, and now it was Shui Jianfeng, who was even stronger than him. Lin Yi's strength was already deeply ingrained in his mind, and he couldn't bring himself to resist at all with his foundation intermediate stage strength. Mercy, Senior. I really had nothing to do with this. I was only forced to be his driver. I didn't do anything. Senior, please don't cripple me. I surrender. Fei Yangsheng's kneeling posture was still perfect. His heart, on the other hand, was terrified. After all, Lin Yi had let him go last time, and now he was in Lin Yi's hands again. Even if he didn't do anything to Ling Shan and the others, who knew what Lin Yi was thinking? In fact, Lin Yi didn't intend to start a massacre. Seeing that the man was so sensible, he nodded and said, "All right, you can stay with me. We'll have to deal with people from the Archaic Alliance in the future. I just happen to be lacking an internal guide." Yes. Thank you for your mercy, Fei Yangsheng was overjoyed. As long as he could keep his life and his dantian, everything else was negotiable. Being Lin Yi's follower and guide was a little like defecting to the enemy, but the Archaic Alliance didn't have much higher standards for morality compared to the common world, especially when it came to something like his life and dantian. There was no need to make a choice. Shui Jianfeng was crippled, and Fei Yangsheng surrendering. This sudden storm had finally come to an end. Ling Shan and the others finally had the chance to surround Lin Yi. Looking at these familiar faces, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a surge of warmth in his heart. Starting from Ling Shan, everyone gave him a bear hug, regardless of gender. To him, everyone here was his family. These 3 years, it's been hard on everyone. Lin Yi said emotionally. "Boss, what are you talking about? This is what we should be doing. There's nothing hard about it." Chen Tian said. "Yeah, boss, you're still treating us like outsiders? You're breaking our hearts." Yu Bing, Qikuan, and the others joined in. Fine. I said the wrong thing, alright? Who asked you guys to be on the same boat as me? You deserve to die from exhaustion, alright? Lin Yi raised his hands in surrender. That's more like it. Chen Tian and the others smiled. Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry when Ziyu suddenly came over and sniffed Lin Yi from head to toe. She frowned. "Lin Yi bro, what's that smell on you? You're not looking for women again, are you?" "Huh?" Lin Yi paused. Seeing Ling Shan and the others trying to stifle their laughter, he realized that he was a Yuan Shen. How could he smell like that? He was almost tricked by this girl. The reunion didn't last long, however, because Ling Shan suddenly remembered the news she just received. She quickly told Lin Yi about what happened in Snowy Valley and how Mrs. Tang was injured. "How dare you!" Lin Yi was in a good mood, but he was furious after hearing this. "Time is of the essence, I'm going to Snowy Valley right now." You guys wait here for me. All right. Everyone nodded after seeing the fight between Lin Yi and Xue Jianfeng. They knew that they weren't strong enough to help. Lin Yi, on the other hand, would be able to do what he could if he went himself. Lin Yi was about to leave when he thought about it and went to the second floor to check on the unconscious girls. He felt their pulses one by one and breathed a sigh of relief when he realized that there were no changes. In a situation like this, the fact that there were no changes was good news. His main body was already a mystic ascension early phase, and once he became a magnate, Lin Yi believed that his chances of finding Zhang Liju would be much higher. Zhang Liju might be mysterious, but if they were at the same level, then their activity areas would overlap. Naturally, they would run into each other. He believed that as long as he could find Zhang Liju, the girls would be saved. Coming out of the villa, Lin Yi had Fei Yangxing with him. He was still the driver, but he was driving for Xue Jianfeng, and now the boss was Lin Yi. What surprised Lin Yi was the fact that Fei Yangxing's driving skills weren't bad at all. He didn't care about the traffic rules at all, but his speed was really fast. It was supposed to be a private car, but Fei Yangxing was able to turn it into a super sports car like he was on steroids. Lin Yi was speechless at the thought. But his driving style was to Lin Yi's liking. Lin Yi wanted to get to Snowy Valley as soon as possible. If this guy drove like a snail, he'd have to do it himself. This saved him a lot of energy. What's your relationship with that Xue Jianfeng? Lin Yi asked from the front passenger seat. Senior, he's the big disciple of our sect, and he's the one leading the training in the common world. I don't dare disobey him, and that's why this happened. Fei Yangxing replied carefully. Chapter 50-73. Snow Sword School, Fei Yangxing answered. What's that? Snow Sword School? Which snow and which sword? Lin Yi was shocked when he heard that. Snow as in snow, sword as in saber. Fei Yangxing gave Lin Yi a strange look. He had just told him the name of his school. Was there a need to be so excited? Lin Yi was immediately stunned. Not only did it sound like the same name, even the words were exactly the same. There really was no such thing as a coincidence. If he did not know that the primordial underworld and Heaven's Stage Island were two different things, he would have thought that this was Heaven's Stage Island Snow Sword School. Heaven's Stage Island and the primordial underworld had nothing to do with each other. They were two completely isolated planes. This kind of thing was impossible. Although he felt that it should be a pure coincidence, Lin Yi faintly felt that something was wrong. Because he suddenly thought of Xue Jianfeng's move. It seemed to be a bit similar to Heaven's Stage Island's Snow Sword School. He did not know whether it was an illusion or the truth. After all, Lin Yi had only seen a few moves of Snow Sword School from Wei Shenjin. At most, he had a general feeling, but he could not be sure. By the way, do you know which school Lang Lang is from? Lin Yi asked. She is also from our Snow Sword School. Fei Yangxing could not help but feel a bit embarrassed. Because he had bad intentions towards Lang Lang last time, whenever Lin Yi mentioned the name, he would be terrified. He was afraid that Lin Yi would react and settle the score. So, last time, his answer was very vague. As a result, Lin Yi did not hear that they were from the same school. Lang Lang is also from your Snow Sword School? Lin Yi was immediately interested. He continued to ask, then tell me about your Snow Sword School. Yes, but I am just an ordinary disciple in the school. I actually do not know much. At most, I only know some things that everyone knows, Fei Yangxing said weakly. Tell me everything you know, Lin Yi said lightly. Yes, our Snow Sword School is a first-rate school in the Archaic Alliance. Our disciples are generally stronger than other schools. In other schools, many foundation establishment disciples are core disciples, but in our Snow Sword School, they're only the first step to becoming a formal disciple. Only people like Senior Brother Xue, who are at the peak of foundation establishment, or people like Lang Lang, who are extremely talented, can become a core disciple of the school, Fei Yongsheng said honestly, not daring to hide anything. Lin Yi thought for a while. Only masters in the Foundation establishment realm could become official disciples. From this point of view, it was not much different from the Heaven Stage Island. After all, the official disciples of the 3 pavilions in the North Island were also in the Foundation establishment realm. If the disciple's strength surpasses the peak of Foundation establishment realm and reaches the Golden Core realm, then they will automatically be promoted to Martial Uncle. In our Snow Sword School, seniority is based on strength. Although the real master is still called master in private, on the surface, if the disciple also reaches the Golden Core realm, then they will have to call each other senior brother, Fei Yongsheng continued. This showed the difference between the archaic Jianghu and Heaven Stage Island. Golden Core realm masters were only inner sect disciples on Heaven Stage Island. If one wanted to become a martial uncle, they had to be at least at the nascent soul realm. Above the Golden Core realm, I heard that our Snow Sword School has nascent soul realm old monsters, but I have never seen them in person. As for the higher levels, I don't know. Fei Yongsheng looked at Lin Yi with eager eyes. This was all he knew. If Lin Yi wanted to ask more, he really could not do anything. Seeing this, Lin Yi's face immediately darkened. Watch the road when driving. What if you hit someone? Can you afford to pay for it? I can't afford to pay for it. Fei Yongsheng immediately burst into tears. Last time, when they passed by a village entrance, an old lady fell down dozens of meters away. She insisted that he hit her and would not let her go unless he paid for it. She even called a group of people from the village. He was a middle-stage Foundation establishment realm master, but he was scared by a group of ordinary people. Thinking about it made him sad. They traveled as fast as lightning. When Lin Yi and Fei Yongsheng arrived at the Snow Valley, everyone in the Snow Valley was in a panic. The slightly stronger Heaven Realm disciples were almost all injured. On the contrary, the weaker disciples mostly escaped because they were not taken seriously. At this time, almost all the Snow Valley disciples were gathered in the small square. They all looked at the 4 people in front of them as if they were facing a great enemy. A feeling of despair and fear spread among them. It was no wonder that they were so helpless. Any one of these 4 people could beat all their strongest disciples. There was no way they could fight them. Have you all made up your mind? I've said it before, delaying any longer won't do you any good. As long as the disciples I've pointed out obediently follow me, nothing else will happen. It's obviously a win-win situation for everyone, so why bother asking for trouble? The leader of the group said arrogantly. Everyone in the Snow Valley was silent. The new Snow Valley head coughed out a mouthful of black blood. These archaic alliance bastards were not here to recruit disciples. They were clearly here to dig up the foundation of the sect. The disciples he called out were all talented and the sect's hope. If they were all taken away by him, the Snow Valley would be destroyed. They would never be able to rise again. Wishful thinking. These disciples have been painstakingly raised by the Snow Valley. This is their home. They are people of the Snow Valley when they live, and ghosts of the Snow Valley when they die. A Snow Valley elder struggled to stand up and scolded. Noisy. The leader of the group cursed coldly. He casually waved his hand and the elder was sent flying, leaving behind a dazzling trail of blood. This scene once again caused the people of the Snow Valley to tremble with fear. From top to bottom, even the most powerful Grand Elder had been severely injured. How could they fight against the other party? Eldest senior brother, in my opinion, let's not talk nonsense with them. Just drag these disciples away. Once they enter the ancient Jianghu, they will naturally know what is good and what is bad. Why waste time with them here? A bearded man next to him suggested. Fine. Originally, I wanted to end this peacefully and not give people anything to talk about. But since they are so untactful, there is no other way. The leader nodded. As soon as he said this, the other 2 followers immediately shouted and attacked. The people of the Snow Valley turned pale with fright. At this time, they had no power to resist. They couldn't even escape. There was only despair. Chapter 50-74. Who is it? The leader and the bearded man beside him jumped in fright. Someone who could send 2 mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivators flying without making a sound? How could there be someone like that in Snowy Valley? You people from the Archaic Alliance really don't care about what you do. I thought Shui Jianfeng was shameless enough, but you guys are even more shameless than him, coming out in broad daylight to kidnap people. Don't you know that's against the law? You'll be executed by firing squad for 5 minutes? Lin Yi looked at the two unkindly. What firing squad for 5 minutes? The leader paused and looked closely at Lin Yi and Lin Yi. He obviously didn't recognize Lin Yi, but he did recognize Fei Yangsheng, who was behind Lin Yi. Aren't you from the Snow Sword School? Is this guy from the Snow Sword School too? Why haven't I seen him before? To be able to casually kill 2 middle-stage Foundation establishment experts with a single move, his strength was at least in the late stage of Foundation establishment. Even in the Snow Sword faction, he would be able to obtain a position as a core disciple. The immemorial martial world was only so big, and the core disciples of the various sects would almost always see each other. Under normal circumstances, he should have at least met them a few times. Lin Yi didn't even look at him as he headed straight for Mrs. Tang, who was in the crowd. Mrs. Tang's injuries weren't that serious, just that she'd been hit by the shockwave. She'd been moaning and groaning when she saw Lin Yi. She jumped up with a whoosh, overjoyed. Yi, why are you back? When did you get back? Auntie, I just came back. I'm sorry I didn't take good care of you. Lin Yi said guiltily. Mrs. Tang was a snobbish person, but she'd always treated him well. She'd try her best to get anything for him. Now that Tang Yin was unconscious, Lin Yi had to take good care of them. Snowy Valley was supposed to be a peaceful paradise, but now something like this had happened. The Archaic Alliance's image in Lin Yi's eyes had dropped to the freezing point. It's fine, it's fine. It's good that you're back. How's Yin? Mrs. Tang asked. It's still the same for now, but I'm sure I can find a way to cure her. Lin Yi's expression darkened, and he said, Auntie, please sit down first, I'll heal you. It's fine, it's fine. I'll be fine after a few days. Lil Yi, you should think of a way to get rid of these people. Mrs. Tang's face was still twitching from the pain, but now that they were facing a formidable enemy, she could still distinguish the severity of the situation. She knew that Lin Yi was the only savior of the Snow Valley, and she did not want to distract him. Auntie, you don't have to worry. It won't be long. Besides, I don't care about cats and dogs that don't know the rules. As Lin Yi spoke, he began to heal Mrs. Tang. The people of Snowy Valley heard this, and although they felt some hope in their hearts, most of them still thought that he was deliberately mystifying things. As far as they were concerned, Lin Yi was strong, but these were all Heavenly Dao cultivators. Could Lin Yi be stronger than them? The two from the Archaic Alliance exploded in anger when they heard this. The leader gave Big Beard a look, telling him to go check on the 2 mid-stage Foundation establishment disciples. The results shocked him. Both of them were heavily injured, and they were on their last breaths. Beating 2 mid-stage Foundation establishment disciples to the brink of death in one move was far more difficult than directly killing them. This was clearly because the opponent had deliberately controlled the damage. Such strength was truly shocking. I am Qinkuan sect's eldest senior brother, Yuzheng Liang. What sect are you from? Why don't you report your name? The leader shouted. Lin Yi still did not look at him, and continued to heal Mrs. Tang. Fei Yangsheng saw this and could only bite the bullet and say, the disciples here are suitable to cultivate our Snow Sword School's mental cultivation method, but your Qinkuan sect is one step ahead of us and forcefully snatched them away. Isn't that against the rules? Humph. There is someone here who matches our Cosmos Gate's aptitude. You, a mere ordinary disciple of the Snow Sword faction, dares to step forward and say such words to me? Do you think you are Shui Jianfeng? You actually dare to snatch someone from me? Yu Jingliang said contemptuously. Fei Yangsheng immediately choked and snuck a glance at Lin Yi. This person was much more ruthless than Shui Jianfeng. Even Shui Jianfeng, the number one of the Archaic Alliance's younger generation, had been beaten half to death by him, and even his dantian had been crushed. In front of such a ruthless person, how could Yu Jingliang be any better than Shui Jianfeng? However, he could only think this in his heart. He didn't dare say it out loud. Seeing that Lin Yi was still indifferently healing Mrs. Tang, Fei Yangsheng could only bite the bullet and say, "You've misunderstood. Our Snow Sword School has no intention of snatching people away. Whether or not they want to join our sect is entirely up to them. We definitely won't force them." After all, Shui Jianfeng did the same thing as Yu Jingliang. It was just that his method was milder. However, what Fei Yangsheng said was the absolute truth. Even Shui Jianfeng, who led the team out to train, had become a cripple. If the Snow Sword faction wanted to recruit more people, they would not dare to force their way in. The Snow Sword School has always been hypocritical, but everyone knows what kind of shady business you've been doing in private. You don't have to pretend to be a good person in front of me, do you? Even if Shui Jianfeng was here, I, Yu Jingliang, will definitely take in all of these disciples from Shui Valley. Yu Jingliang said and suddenly released a powerful aura. It was another Foundation Establishment Great Circle expert. The faces of the people of the Snow Valley all changed. Before, it was only the two mid-stage Foundation Establishment experts who attacked. Now, Yu Jingliang's strength seemed to be many times stronger. How could they live? Could Lin Yi withstand it? Fei Yangsheng saw this and quietly took 2 steps back. It was fine for him to say some polite words to buy time, but if he really had to fight with someone like Yu Jingliang, he wouldn't even dare to die. With his strength, he wouldn't be able to withstand even one move. When my Qingkuan sect does things, those who stand in our way will die. Yu Jingliang said ruthlessly. At the same time, he gave a look to the bearded man next to him. The bearded man immediately rushed toward the people of the Snow Valley. His aura was only slightly weaker than Yu Jingliang's. He was actually a peak late-stage Foundation Establishment expert. The people of the Snow Valley were shocked, but soon they realized that they were thinking too much. The bearded man wasn't coming for them. From the beginning to the end, the bearded man only had one target, and that was Lin Yi. Chapter 50-75. Hee, go to hell. Big Beardy's mouth curved into a sinister smile as he swung his hand towards the back of Lin Yi's head. Once it hit, Lin Yi's head would immediately be split open. However, before he could finish his attack, Lin Yi continued to heal Mrs. Tang's injuries and sent out a wave of murderous aura without even turning his head. Big Beardy was sent flying with a howl, just like the other 2 mid-stage foundational cultivators. He landed heavily on the ground tens of meters away and couldn't get up again. The crowd was dead silent as they looked at Lin Yi without a shred of doubt in their eyes. This guy wasn't just bragging, he really did have the ability to look down on these Sky Dao cultivators. Yu Jingliang's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He thought that Lin Yi had the advantage of sneak attacks, which was why he could easily deal with the 2 mid-stage foundational cultivators. He didn't think that even Big Beardy wouldn't be able to take a single hit from him. One had to know that Big Beardy was only slightly weaker than him. Only Fei Yangsheng was prepared for this. After all, even Shui Jianfeng ended up like that, not to mention these guys from Qingkuan sect. He was a little sad when he saw Shui Jianfeng getting beaten up, but now that it was someone from Qingkuan sect, Fei Yangsheng felt a strange sense of satisfaction. These arrogant guys deserve to be beaten up. Alright, Auntie, move around a bit. Lin Yi carefully examined Mrs. Tang's injuries, and only stood up when they didn't affect her anymore. He signaled Mrs. Tang to walk 2 steps. Mrs. Tang performed a square dance in front of everyone, and it was only after the song was over that she exclaimed in surprise, "It's really all healed. There's no injury at all, and it doesn't hurt at all." You're amazing. It's good that it doesn't hurt anymore. Auntie, rest here for a bit. I'll help you vent your anger. Lin Yi smiled and walked towards Yu Jingliang. What do you want? Yu Jingliang couldn't help but reveal a bit of nervousness. Seeing what happened to Big Beard, even a fool would know that Lin Yi was definitely not someone to be trifled with. Although he was the proud and arrogant Qinkuan sect's eldest senior brother, a dignified Foundation establishment realm master, he really didn't have much confidence in facing Lin Yi. It was a pity that he was now riding a tiger and it was hard for him to get off. He had aggressively brought people to the Snow Valley to snatch the disciple, but not only did he fail to snatch the disciple, his subordinates were all killed. Looking at the situation, even he himself was in a difficult position. At this time, he could neither advance nor retreat. As the senior disciple of the Qinkuan sect, he could not possibly abandon his junior disciple and run away, right? Nothing much, it's just blood for blood, a tooth for a tooth. Whatever you guys did to the people of the Snow Valley, you'll have to pay back double. You're from the Archaic Alliance after all. You should at least have this basic understanding, right? Lin Yi laughed coldly as he cracked his knuckles. Hearing this voice, Yu Jingliang was frightened and took 2 steps back. He put on a brave front and said, "Who the hell are you? You're too courteous. I'm not a saint, I'm just a commoner. I can't compare to your Archaic Alliance. Your Archaic Alliance is so powerful that you can snatch whoever you want. This kind of thing can't be done in the secular world. Human traffickers are guilty of the most heinous crimes. If you catch them, you'll be shot for 5 minutes." Lin Yi said in a mocking tone. Even if Yu Jingliang did not understand, he could tell that it was definitely not a good thing. His originally arrogant face suddenly turned purple with anger. Killing intent surged from his body as he said with a fierce expression, "Boy, even if you're not weak, you're only at the peak of the Foundation establishment stage. Do you think you can challenge the Archaic Alliance? If you know what's good for you, bow your head and admit your mistake, then today's matter will end here. I can let these Snow Valley disciples go, but if you continue to pester me, then wait for the Archaic Alliance to exterminate your sect." Lin Yi was stunned for a moment. He looked him up and down and said, "If I'm not wrong, you seem to be begging for mercy?" Yu Jingliang was speechless. Asking to stop here and promising to let the Snow Valley disciples go was indeed begging for mercy. After all, Lin Yi's performance just now was too shocking. If he really fought with Lin Yi one-on-one, he might not have much chance of winning. In this kind of situation, taking the initiative to retreat was the wisest choice. However, all masters wanted face. He thought that this was at most a negotiation. He was the Qinkuan sect's eldest senior disciple. How could he beg for mercy from a commoner? It's the first time I've seen someone pleading with such a fresh and elegant demeanor. Let me give you a friendly reminder, at least act more professional next time you beg for mercy. That tone of yours is very easy to misunderstand as bickering, and you'll get yourself a beating. Lin Yi said as he glanced at Fei Yangsheng. When it came to begging for mercy, this guy was the real model. He knelt when he said he would, without any hesitation. Yu Jingliang's face alternated between green and white. It took him a long time to recover. He thought that although this guy's mouth was harsh, at least he was tactful and didn't dare to challenge the entire Archaic Alliance. He snorted coldly and said, "The mountains will never change, the rivers will always flow." Wait. Lin Yi immediately interrupted him and curled his lips. Don't talk to me like we'll meet again someday. Did I say that you could leave? You're not even begging sincerely. Do you think I'll spoil you? Do you think I'm your father? You've gone too far. Yu Jingliang was furious. He had never suffered such humiliation in the Archaic Alliance. He no longer cared about the comparison of strength and madly rushed over. In the blink of an eye, Yu Jingliang was already in front of Lin Yi. Each of his palms was surrounded by a powerful true qi. The two true qi were completely different in nature. One was sharp like a blade, while the other was heavy like a mountain. The former focused on attack, while the latter focused on defense. It was the Qinkuan sect's signature heaven and earth palm. Your palm technique is not bad, but it's a pity that you're a bit lacking. Lin Yi smiled faintly as he tilted his body and dodged Yu Jingliang's first palm. If it were anyone else, they would have been exposed a long time ago. Yu Jingliang, however, was able to use his other palm to block the attack. He was, after all, the big brother of Qinkuan sect, and he had the strength to back it up. With this heaven and earth palm, Yu Jingliang's strength was definitely at the top of the great circle of Foundation establishment experts. Even Xue Jianfeng, who was known as the strongest great circle of Foundation establishment in the Archaic Alliance, would only have a 50-50 chance of winning against him. At most, his chances of winning were slightly higher. Chapter 5076. After dodging his opponent's first palm strike, Lin Yi casually pointed a finger at Yu Jingliang's face. Yu Jingliang hurriedly raised his palm to defend. Lin Yi's finger seemed ordinary and without any momentum, but the more it was so, the more he was shocked. If Lin Yi's momentum was shocking, then it would have been fine. But now, he could not understand it at all. In the end, Lin Yi's finger was really just a casual finger, without any power to speak of. Yu Jingliang barely had to use any true energy to defend himself. Was this guy just bluffing? Yu Jingliang suddenly felt humiliated, as if he had been played like a monkey. He could not help but counterattack with all his strength. But in the end, he relaxed a little, and in the exchange of attack and defense, he only revealed a slight flaw. Lin Yi's fingertip immediately drew a blue arc. The arc instantly pierced through the true energy protecting Yu Jingliang's body. He felt numb all over, and by the time he reacted, Lin Yi had already swept his face with 1,000 fiery legs. He was kicked 100 meters away and fell to the ground vomiting blood. The blue arc and 1,000 fiery legs. The power of Lin Yi's moves was actually not much stronger than the heaven and earth palm. The reason why the battle was so one-sided was purely because of the difference in intelligence. Yu Jingliang, the eldest senior disciple of the Qinkuan sect, seemed experienced, but against an existence whose body was comparable to a giant of the mountain opening stage, he was really too inexperienced. Everyone from the Snow Valley was shocked to see this scene. The Qinkuan sect had 4 heavenly Dao stage experts, but none of them could survive a full exchange with Lin Yi. Just how strong was this Lin Yi? Humph, what archaic alliance, you ignorant little bastards. You have the guts to provoke the Snow Valley. Now you know the consequences. Mrs. Tang saw this and immediately became lively. She pointed at the heavily injured Yu Jingliang and the others and took the opportunity to scold them. Her scolding skills left Lin Yi in the dust. In the end, she did not forget to say proudly, I have already told you that my son-in-law is very powerful. He can kill you little ruffians with one kick. Look, you are finished. Everyone looked at each other. When did this woman say that? She didn't even know that Lin Yi could come back to save the day. If he really said that, wouldn't he be asking for a beating? However, no one really cared about such things at this time. Everyone knew that Mrs. Tang was this kind of person, and she was the closest person to Lin Yi. The reason why Lin Yi rushed over to help was mostly because of her. Otherwise, the storm today would have ended tragically. Valley Master Xue. What do you plan to do with these 4? Lin Yi asked the new Valley Lord. The people of the Snow Valley were instantly energized. The tables had truly turned. Just a moment ago, Yu Jingliang and the others had been riding roughshod over them. Who would have thought that the situation would be reversed so quickly? Seeing the 4 of them in such a pathetic state, it was truly a relief. We will follow President Lin's decision, the new Valley Lord said hurriedly. This time, more than half of the Snow Valley disciples were injured. Everyone hated Yu Jingliang and the others to the core, but she did not dare to deal with them casually. After all, they were from the Archaic Alliance. The Snow Valley would still not have peace. All right, then tell them to scram. I will take care of the Archaic Alliance. Lin Yi gave Fei Yangxing a look. This guy was born to be a lackey. He immediately went up and kicked the 4 half-dead people off the ground. Although Yu Jingliang and the others were too injured to move, they gritted their teeth and crawled out of the snow valley. They were afraid that Lin Yi would go back on his word and kill them to silence them. But these people were clearly thinking too much. Lin Yi had no plans to completely fall out with the Archaic Alliance. After all, his Yuan Shen could not stay in the mortal world forever. And right now, he only had the strength of a Foundation establishment cultivator. It was not enough to crush the entire Archaic Alliance. So unless he had no other choice, he would not easily start a massacre. Lin Yi's decision was a little unexpected, but looking at Yu Jingliang and the other three's pitiful faces, the people of the Snow Valley were relieved. Other than regretting that they couldn't take revenge with their own hands, they didn't really have anything to complain about. Many thanks to President Lin for helping us out this time. On behalf of all the disciples of the Snow Valley, I cannot thank you enough. President Lin's great kindness will always be remembered, the new Valley Lord said solemnly. You are too kind. The Snow Valley and I have a deep relationship. This is all part of my duty. There is no need to thank me. Lin Yi waved his hand with a smile. Suddenly, he remembered Sydney's instructions and asked, "Oh right, how has the Snow Valley been these past few years?" Everything has been fine for the past few years, except for today's storm. The new Valley Lord smiled bitterly, then looked up and down at Lin Yi. With some surprise, he asked, "President Lin, you've returned. Has everyone else returned as well?" That's not it. My situation is a little special. This time, I'm the only one who returned. Lin Yi shook his head. Seeing the Valley Lord's hesitant expression, he laughed. You want to ask about Sydney's situation, right? She's doing very well. When I returned this time, she asked me to bring a message for you all to rest assured. Oh, that's good, that's good. Hearing this, everyone in the Snow Valley heaved a sigh of relief, and a smile appeared on their faces. The former Valley Lord, Sydney, was very popular here. President Lin, let's go into the house and have a seat. I'll get someone to prepare a banquet. Although you and the Snow Valley have a deep relationship, you've helped us out this time. We should at least show our appreciation, the new Valley Master of the Snow Valley suggested. Yeah, it's rare for you to come back. Why don't you stay here for a few more days? Mrs. Tang chimed in. She had gotten a lot of treasures from the Snow Valley in the past few years, and she was planning to give them to Lin Yi in secret. Auntie, I really can't stay here this time. I have to go back to East Ocean City as soon as possible. The Archaic Alliance can't be delayed, Lin Yi said. I see. Mrs. Tang didn't know what to say. If it was something else, she would have held on to Lin Yi without a second thought. However, the Archaic Alliance was not a small matter. Especially after today's dangerous experience, even she knew that if she didn't handle this well, it would be a big problem. Everything else could be delayed, but this matter couldn't be delayed. Everyone in the Snow Valley had the same thought, and they immediately said, if that's the case, then we will wait for President Lin's arrival when we have time. Chapter 5077. Fei Yangxing was still driving like a madman. First it was Xue Jianfeng, and now it was Yu Jingliang and the others. The guy's attitude towards Lin Yi was getting more and more respectful. The strong ruled, after all, and that was the rule no matter where they went. If I let Yu Jingliang and the other three go back, what do you think the Archaic Alliance will do? Lin Yi suddenly asked. Ugh. Fei Yangxing choked. At this moment, he felt ashamed of being a traitor. But he quickly threw it to the back of his head and said weakly, it should be very nervous. First, Sun Baimei and Yin Jiping from the evil warding sect were killed. Then, Xue Jianfeng from the Snow Sword faction had his Dantian crippled and was imprisoned in the Mystery Investigation Bureau. Now, Yu Jingliang and the others from the Qinkuan sect were tortured. Any one of these incidents would cause a huge commotion. Now that all of these incidents were stacked together, the entire Great Ancient Alliance was in a state of panic. And the cause of all this was Lin Yi. Everyone thought that the training in the secular world would be easy and pleasant. But with Lin Yi's interference, the Archaic Alliance wouldn't be happy anymore. What will happen after the nervousness? Will there be any follow-up actions? Like sending people to take revenge? Lin Yi continued to ask. This was the question he was most concerned about. If the Archaic Alliance were to lose control of themselves after this series of provocations, they'd start massacring the mortal world. That would be troublesome. They won't directly send people to take revenge. After all, the Archaic Alliance is just a loose alliance. As long as it's not their own sect that's in trouble, they'll just laugh at the other sections. I don't think they'll be so kind as to stand up for other sections. I think they'll at most inform the disciples to be careful. Fei Yangsheng carefully guessed. Although this answer was a little suspicious, it was the most likely situation. After all, the Archaic Alliance wasn't a monolithic one. There would always be new and old grudges between sections. Unless there was a disaster, they wouldn't easily work together. Lin Yi let out a sigh of relief and asked, "Do you have a way to contact the disciples who are out for training? Do you know how to contact Leng Leng?" Leng Leng's whereabouts was another important matter in Lin Yi's heart. Although she had a phone on her, the result of several attempts was that her phone had been turned off. According to Lin Yi's guess, it was most likely out of battery. Moreover, Leng Leng might be hiding in some deep mountain forest to train, so there was no way for her to charge her phone. Otherwise, she would not have left it alone with her passion for the phone. It's not really a way to contact them. It's just that every sect has their own special mark. When disciples go out to train, they will leave a special mark to contact others. It's the same for our snow sword school, Fei Yangsheng answered. Lin Yi was speechless. This method was too old. It was purely the primitive method of the ancient Wulin. In modern times, this method was no different from casting a net in the sea. It was unrealistic to use this method to find Leng Leng, unless Leng Leng was nearby. The probability of that happening was even lower than winning the lottery. Tian. Fei. Leng Leng, Yang. Tian, Lin, Fei Yangsheng looked at him helplessly. I'm not close to her. How would I know something you don't know? But he didn't dare to complain to Lin Yi's face. He thought about it and said, the ancient passage will close in a year. All the disciples will gather at the entrance of Shenangjia Formation. You should be able to find Leng Leng. All right. Lin Yi nodded. He had heard about this from Leng Leng before, and he confirmed it with Fei Yangsheng. Now that he knew that there was a way to locate Leng Leng, he wasn't in too much of a hurry anymore. It was better to return to Donghai first. Back at the villa in the district, Qin Tian and the others, other than Ling Shan, who was on duty at the Supernatural Investigation Bureau, were still there. They were all waiting at the door, waiting for Lin Yi's return. Boss, how's the situation in Snow Valley? Qin Tian asked. It's fine. It's the Archaic Alliance's Qinkuan sect messing around. I chased them away after beating them up. Lin Yi smiled. Huh, you're the best, boss. Everyone cheered as they escorted Lin Yi into the room. Lin Yi stopped abruptly and turned to Fei Yangsheng, who was following behind the group. Go guard the door, don't even think about running away. I told you that I've marked you with my consciousness, and I'll kill you if you dare take half a step out of the door. Yes, don't worry, senior. I won't run, not even if you kill me. Fei Yangsheng quickly swore to the heavens and became a guard. Ziyu was happy to see this. She turned to Qin Tian, Master Wu, there's a new guard for you. You can rest now. That's what I wanted. Now I can go prepare dinner for everyone. You guys just wait for the feast. Qin Tian grinned and went into the kitchen to cook. He'd actually been preparing for this dinner, and it didn't take long for it to be served. Everyone sat around the table, laughing and chatting. Other than Meng Yao and the others who were still unconscious, it was a perfect scene. Before dinner, Lin Yi called Lin Dongfang to report to him. The old man was ready to come out again after receiving the news from Chen Tian and the others, but when he learned that Lin Yi was back personally, he didn't care anymore. He even said that if Lin Yi couldn't even solve a small problem like this, then he'd be eating shit for 3 years on Sky Class Island. Lin Yi almost choked to death. Although he knew that old Lin believed in his abilities, he was more willing to believe that there was another reason. The old man must have been having too much fun with Aunt Qing. He must have been busy doing those inappropriate things all day long. Even if he didn't die from ejaculation, his legs must have been too weak to walk. Say hi to Aunt Qing for me, and tell her to take it easy, don't squeeze your old bones dry. Lin Yi yelled into the phone. Scram. Old Lin was still full of energy. Lin Yi hung up the phone with a laugh. Everyone was waiting for him to sit down, and they couldn't wait to ask, "Boss, how did you come back this time? Why are you alone?" Chapter 5078. Is this the Yuan Shen they were talking about? The group was puzzled. This question had been on their minds ever since they saw Lin Yi, and they'd been holding it in for an entire day. That's right. I look like a normal person right now, but this isn't a real physical body. It's just a Yuan Shen condensed from my consciousness. Not only is my strength far below my main body, but I can't stay in the common world forever. I'll have to go back when my consciousness is used up, Lin Yi nodded. That mysterious? Boss, you're too amazing. The group had a look of confusion on their faces. At their level, it was hard for them to truly understand the concept of a Yuan Shen projection. The only thing they felt was that this thing was just too amazing. It was like an illusion. Then how long can you stay this time? Ling Shan and the girls were focused on a different thing. I'm not too sure, but a few months shouldn't be a problem. Lin Yi said after some thought. As long as his Yuan Shen didn't collapse like last time, a few months shouldn't be a problem. It might even be longer than he expected. He still had the starring charcoal that Leng Leng gave him. Just a few months. Ling Shan and the girls were evidently dissatisfied. They'd been separated for 3 years, and they only had a few months to reunite with each other. Plus, they had to deal with this archaic alliance thing. He didn't really have much time to spend with them. Don't be discontented. There's still a long way to go. Once I heal Meng Yao and the others, I'll have plenty of time to spend with you guys, Lin Yi comforted with a smile. You said it yourself, you can't go back on your words, the girl's eyes lit up. All right, I won't. Lin Yi smiled. Let's talk about the archaic alliance first. I've gotten quite a bit of information. The disciples they sent to the common world are all at Foundation establishment level, the so-called Sky level. They'd be newbies on Sky Class Island at most, but they're very strong in the common world. That's why they caused such a huge commotion. No wonder these people act all high and mighty, acting all high and mighty in front of boss. They're all just newbies, I thought they'd be more powerful. Xiaobo said with a curl of his lips. I've tested them out before. These people from the Archaic Alliance all think that Sky Class Island is just a legend, and they think that Archaic Alliance is the ultimate holy land for practitioners. They even said that we mortals are frogs in a well. That tone was too funny, I almost couldn't hold it in, Ling Shan laughed. No matter how strong you are, there's always someone stronger. Even I know that, but these people from the Archaic Alliance don't understand that. Seems like they're nothing much, Ziyu said with disdain. Huh, even you've improved. Lin Yi smiled. That's true, but at least in the common world, the Archaic Alliance does have what it takes to be superior. Plus, they didn't come to the common world to be enemies with us, they just wanted to recruit some talented disciples. It's not a bad idea, but these sects think they're high up, and once they do something, it'll be like Snow Sword and Qinkuan sect. It'll be easy for things to go wrong. This was the truth. If the Archaic Alliance really wanted to do something to the common world, even he wouldn't be able to stop it. He'd been recovering his strength for a month already, and the common world would have been massacred 8 to 10 times over. This won't do. At this rate, there'll be a second and third Shuegu, and the grudges will only get deeper and deeper. We'll have to be enemies then, Yu Bing frowned. That's right, if too many people die, it'll be an eye for an eye, and it'll be impossible for us to make peace, Chen Tian and the others nodded. They didn't like the Archaic Alliance, but they'd never thought of starting an all-out war with them. Even if they had a supermaster like Lin Yi on their side, the Archaic Alliance's overall strength was much stronger than the common world's. If they really fought, the common world's lives would be lost, and that was an outcome no one wanted to see. Strictly speaking, the Archaic Alliance has suffered 3 losses in my hands already. Releasing those 4 from Qinkuan's sect will definitely attract attention. It's time to have a good talk with the people in charge. We can't let them do as they please, Lin Yi said solemnly. The common world didn't have the power to negotiate with the Archaic Alliance, but now that there was an anomaly like him, there was a chance for them to sit down and talk. After all, the Archaic Alliance weren't idiots, and going all out wouldn't do them any good. Instead, more people would die in Lin Yi's hands, and that wouldn't be worth it. Yes, that's what we were thinking, Chen Tian and the others nodded. Chen Tian and the others nodded. They were thinking of using a primordial spirit practitioner to intimidate the enemy, but they didn't expect their boss to be that mysterious primordial spirit practitioner himself. This made things even more convenient. But where do we go to find these people? Kang Xiaobo asked. That's easy, Shui Jianfeng's locked up there. We just need to interrogate him, Ling Shan said. No need for all that trouble, they're actually in Shenangjia. That's the portal to the archaic small Jianghu. We'll find them there for sure, but as far as I know, the Archaic Alliance is a very loose organization, and the people who came out to the common world to train probably don't have any high-level people. I don't know if there's anyone who can really make decisions, Lin Yi frowned. The group was speechless. The worst thing that could happen was that they'd talk to the Archaic Alliance, but that person's words didn't work, and the other ancient sects were still doing whatever they wanted with Qiankuan's sect. They'd really be coughing up blood if that happened. What's the point of guessing here? Isn't there a guard outside? It's better to ask him than to guess, right? Ziyu curled her lips. Yeah. Everyone's eyes lit up. Lin Yi called Fei Yangxing in, who's the person in charge of the Archaic Alliance. Chapter 5079. No leader. Lin Yi's frown deepened. Then when something big happens this time, you people from the Archaic Alliance would gather together to discuss countermeasures, right? You're just saying your own thing, and there's really no one who can lead the way. Fei Yangxing thought for a moment and said, that's not necessarily the case. Although it's up to each sect to decide, there's an Uncle Master leading the expedition in the secular world this time. However, everyone feels that the expedition in the secular world isn't difficult at all, so that Uncle Master isn't in charge of anything. He's only in charge of opening and closing the primordial passageway. Who is it? What's his strength? Lin Yi asked. It's a leader of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island. His name is Enchanting. I heard that he is a master at the early stage of Gold Core Realm. He is the strongest among all the people in the secular world this time. He may show up this time, but I don't know whether he will come out to take charge or not, Fei Yangxing said carefully. After all, the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island had not suffered any losses so far. Instead, competitors such as the Snow Sword sect and the Qiankuan sect suffered losses. Enchanting was likely to continue to ignore them. If the other sects were all badly hurt in the secular world this time, the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island would be the dominant sect in the future. The Blue Cloud sect in the North Island? Lin Yi was stunned. What the hell? Why did the names of these archaic sects coincide with the Heaven Stage Island? He could ignore the Snow Sword sect, which could be regarded as a pure coincidence. But now there was another one, and it was called the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island. You won't tell me that there are Soaring sect and Xuanji sect in the Archaic Alliance, will you? Lin Yi couldn't help but ask with a strange expression. Yes, the 3 sects in the North Island are like brothers, and each of them is a first-class sect in the Archaic Alliance. Many of the elders in the Alliance are from the 3 sects in the North Island. Senior, how do you know this? Fei Yongxing felt a little strange. In his opinion, although Lin Yi was powerful, he was just a primordial spirit in the secular world. There was no reason for him to know about the small Jianghu in the primitive times. After all, the primitive passage only opened once in 1,000 years. Lin Yi ignored him. At this moment, he was completely speechless. If this was a fucking coincidence, his head could be twisted off and kicked like a ball. Just a moment ago, he said that the people of the Archaic Alliance were narrow-minded and thought that Heaven Step Island was just a rumor. But now, a bunch of sects with the same name as Heaven Step Island had popped up, especially the 3 great gates of the Northern Island. Lin Yi believed that there must be some kind of connection between the two. It was just that this connection might not be known by ordinary disciples. So, if I were to negotiate with the Archaic Alliance, this Enchanting that you mentioned is the only candidate? Lin Yi put aside his doubts and returned to the topic at hand. Yes, he is the only one who can suppress the other primordial sects in terms of status and strength. If even he can't do it, then no one can. Fei Yongxing nodded. Yes, he is the only one who can suppress the other primordial sections. Okay, then go and tell him that the president of the Cultivators Association, Lin Yi, has invited him to meet at the Supernatural Investigation Bureau, Lin Yi said immediately. This. Fei Yongxing immediately flinched. He was now a traitor to the Archaic Alliance. Although the incident with Xue Jianfeng should not have been spread back, he still felt very guilty. Asking him to pass a message to Enchanting at this time would be playing with fire. Why? You don't want to go? Lin Yi's face darkened. No, senior, I will definitely do as you say. Fei Yongxing was shocked and quickly said, but I can only try my best. I can't say that I will definitely meet Uncle Master Enchanting. I just hope that I can pass the message. Should I go now? Go. Lin Yi nodded and then said, oh, by the way, go there and ask about Leng Leng. Maybe she has already gone back. Yes. Fei Yongxing left immediately, carrying Lin Yi's spirit imprint on him. No matter what Lin Yi told him, he had to do it. He wouldn't dare say no. Ziyu called out as soon as Fei Yongxing left, Lin Yi bro, who's Leng Leng? It wasn't just Ziyu, Ling Shan and the others were all concerned as well. As for Wu Qintian and the others, they were all looking left and right. From Lin Yi's tone, they knew that this was a new sis-in-law. She's someone from the Archaic Alliance that I met before. You'll meet her in the future, Lin Yi blushed. Seeing that Ziyu was about to ask, Qintian quickly changed the topic and helped Lin Yi out. He said that Enchanting is an early-phase Golden Core Master. What's your strength now, boss? Foundation establishment full circle. This Yuanshan of mine is far from the level of my main body. I won't be able to level up for now, Lin Yi said. Doesn't that mean you can't compare to him? The group couldn't help but worry. Because of Lin Yi's influence, they knew their levels very well. Facing a Golden Core early phase as a Foundation establishment full circle was a different level altogether. It's a bit difficult, but it's just a negotiation. We might not even start fighting. Plus, even if we do start fighting, we don't know who will win. Lin Yi smiled faintly. His Yuanshan's ability to challenge higher levels was a big weakness compared to his main body, but compared to others, it was already very impressive. If he really used all his skills, he might not lose to an early-phase Golden Core practitioner. But Lin Yi was worried that there might be other hidden masters other than Enchanting in the Archaic Alliance. That would be troublesome. He hoped that Fei Yongxing's information was true. After all, from a normal person's point of view, a Golden Core early-phase master coming to the common world was already a big deal. People stronger than this wouldn't even bother to come. As Lin Yi and the group continued with the banquet, Fei Yangxing rushed to Shenangjia overnight and went straight to the meeting point, asking to see Xianijia of the Green Cloud sect. He didn't have much hope in this. After all, when Yin Jiping and Sun Baimei were killed, Xianijia didn't even show up. Instead, it was Xue Jianfeng who stood out. He was just a normal disciple of the Snow Sword sect, so he didn't have much confidence in meeting Xianijia. But unexpectedly, the whole process went surprisingly smoothly. Fei Yangxing met Xianijia very quickly. Chapter 50-80. Yes, I was asked to bring a message to you, Martial Uncle Xian. Lin Yi, the president of the Secular World Cultivators Association, invites you to meet him at the Supernatural Investigation Bureau, Fei Yangxing said respectfully. The president of the Secular World Cultivators Association, Lin Yi? I've never heard of him before. Xianijia shook his head, showing a lack of interest. Asking him, an expert in the early stage of the Gold Core realm from the Archaic Alliance, to meet a cultivator from the secular world sounded ridiculous. Did Lin Yi think too highly of himself? No, I believe you must have heard of him. He's the primordial spirit cultivator. Fei Yangxing thought for a while and told him everything that Lin Yi had done. Yin Jiping and Sun Baimei from the Bishias sect were killed by him. Xue Jianfeng, the eldest senior brother of the Snow Sword sect, had his elixir field destroyed. Yu Liang and the other 3 from the Qinkuan sect were also beaten up badly by him in the Snow Valley. What? He did all these? Xianijia was shocked. In fact, he had heard about what happened in the Snow Valley from Yu Liang, but he didn't know who Lin Yi was. He didn't expect him to be the primordial spirit cultivator who had caused a stir. What's more, this guy had destroyed Xue Jianfeng's elixir field. Xianijia's expression suddenly became solemn. Xue Jianfeng was known as the strongest expert in the Foundation establishment realm in the Archaic Alliance. If even his elixir field was destroyed, then this primordial spirit cultivator's strength must be at the peak of Foundation establishment realm, or at least the Gold Core realm. Yes, I'm telling the truth, Fei Yangxing promised. It's incredible that there's such an expert in the secular world. Xianijia murmured to himself. Even he might not be able to deal with an expert of this level, so he had to be careful. As the person in charge of the training in the secular world, Xianijia didn't mind letting the disciples of other sects get into trouble, but he couldn't control the situation if it got so big. Otherwise, not only would the disciples of the Green Cloud sect in the North Island be in trouble, but he would also be severely punished by the Elders Association of the Archaic Alliance. He couldn't afford the consequences. Do you know where he came from? Xianijia asked. I don't know. I only know that he's a primordial spirit cultivator. Fei Yangxing shook his head. A primordial spirit cultivator. Xianijia pondered for a moment and thought to himself, could this person be a powerful primordial spirit cultivator that was left in the secular world during the primordial times? Otherwise, I've never heard of any cultivators in the secular world reaching the state of Heaven Wei. As a result, he had successfully become the president of the Cultivator Association. Now that things had developed to this stage, he couldn't ignore it no matter what. Xianijia immediately said, "Go and tell him that I agree to the meeting this time." The Supernatural Investigation Bureau, right? I'll go and meet this primordial spirit cultivator. Fei Xingyang was overjoyed. He didn't know what Xianijia would do to him if he couldn't do what Xianijia asked. He'd be in a lot of trouble if he took it out on him. Fortunately, Xianijia took it seriously this time and agreed so quickly. After setting the time, Fei Yangxing returned to Donghai and told Lin Yi exactly what Xianijia said. Of course, he did all sorts of things in secret and in the open. He was hoping that Lin Yi would let him go if he was happy. Very well, Lingshan, let's go to the Supernatural Investigation Bureau now, Lin Yi nodded. Lin Yi bro, I want to go too. Ziyu said excitedly. Yeah, boss, let's go together. At least we'll be able to boost our reputation. Qintian and the others followed. Imposing. Lin Yi said as he looked at them, speechless. Do you guys think this is a normal gang negotiation? The boss is sitting together, and the lackeys are standing in a line behind him. Do you guys have to change into black suits and sunglasses? Yeah, right? Lin Yi was speechless. That's not impossible. I remember Zhong Pingliang now, Kang Xiaobo nodded. Screw you. Just stay here and take care of Meng Yao and the others for me. Ling Shan and I will go to the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. Lin Yi waved his hand, not sure if he should cry or laugh. But Pingliang's not bad. He's been working with me on Sky Class Island. The opponent was an early-phase Golden Core master, after all. If things didn't work out and they ended up fighting, Lin Yi would be able to protect himself with his current strength. Taking care of one person was already his limit, and if everyone went with him, he'd be holding back. Ling Shan, on the other hand, was the vice director of the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. Bringing her along was a matter of course, otherwise Lin Yi wouldn't even bring her along. After much persuasion, Lin Yi finally managed to convince the group to go with Ling Shan to the HQ. As for Fei Yangsheng, he was left behind to guard the door. The guy was a Foundation establishment stage, after all, and Lin Yi didn't have to worry about him suddenly betraying them. His presence was a deterrent to the other Archaic Alliance disciples. Even if he wasn't as strong as the guy, he could at least stall for time. Lin Yi was still in the passenger seat, but the chauffeur was Ling Shan. He couldn't help but ask curiously as he watched the silly girl's lips curl up uncontrollably. Did something happen to your face? You're the one who's slapped. Ling Shan's face darkened, but her lips curled back up in the blink of an eye. She stuttered, "It feels so good to have just you and me." Lin Yi jumped at the sight of Ling Shan closing her eyes. Don't close your eyes. You're still driving. Don't close your eyes. Ling Shan rolled her eyes at him, muttering, "You're such an insensitive blockhead." Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Naturally, he knew that Ling Shan wanted to spend some alone time with him, but it was a shame that he owed so many girlfriends. Even if he spent all his time with them, it wouldn't be possible for him to spend some alone time with them. It was a normal thing for normal girls, but for Ling Shan and the others, it was a luxury. Lin Yi owed them far too much. Lin Yi was filled with guilt, but Ling Shan didn't think much of it. To her, having some alone time in the car was enough. After all, in her eyes, Lin Yi was someone who was destined to shake the world. If Lin Yi were to be like the others, hanging around women all day, she wouldn't even be interested in him. The two arrived at the HQ, and it wasn't long before a white-bearded old man came to see them. Chapter 5081. This was very normal. He was a master in the early stage of Gold Core from the Archaic Alliance. If he still took these people from the Supernatural Investigation Bureau seriously, then he really had to be on his guard. After all, they might have ulterior motives. But this almost indifferent attitude was not a bad thing for them. At least they could mind their own business. However, after seeing Lin Yi, the white-bearded old man's indifferent expression immediately disappeared and was replaced with a solemn expression. He could be considered to have a lot of experience. Although Lin Yi's aura was restrained and he didn't show it, he still exuded an unfathomable aura. Intuition told the white-bearded old man that this person was definitely not someone to be trifled with. "I'm Enchanting, an elder of the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island of the Archaic Alliance. I'm the person in charge of this experiential learning in the secular world." "Are you Lin Yi?" Enchanting asked seriously. "Yes, please sit down." Lin Yi smiled politely. In fact, he felt quite strange at the moment. He was a genuine disciple of the North Island, but the other party actually called himself an elder of the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island. This kind of dislocation made him speechless. Suppressing the strange feeling in his heart, Lin Yi exchanged a few words with the other party seriously. After all, he was a master in the early stage of Gold Core. In terms of strength, the other party actually had the upper hand. Moreover, the other party was backed by the Archaic Alliance. Even if Lin Yi did not shed all pretense of cordiality, he had to be polite to him. Otherwise, there would be nothing to talk about. Xianijia speculated that Lin Yi was a powerful primordial spirit from the archaic era. At this time, seeing Lin Yi's extraordinary temperament, he naturally would not be too arrogant. Strength determined the right to speak. It was natural for him to ignore the low-strength cultivators in the secular world. But if he also ignored Lin Yi, then it could only mean that there was something wrong with his brain. Being able to become the person in charge of the training in the secular world, it was obvious that there was no problem with his brain. On the contrary, this person was a smooth and slick person. Otherwise, if he only relied on his strength to suppress them, so many ancient sects might not necessarily listen to him. President Lin, I'm here today to sort out the unpleasantness between the Archaic Alliance and the secular world. We need to find out who is right and who is wrong. Otherwise, if the hatred between the two sides deepens, it will not be a good thing for both the Archaic Alliance and the secular world. I believe President Lin agrees on this point. Xianijia went straight to the point. Of course, the secular world is our home. No one wants their home to be on fire. This time, I specially invited Elder Xian here to clarify the matter. I hope that the Archaic Alliance can control the behavior of disciples in the future to avoid any friction. Lin Yi nodded. Alright, then let's talk about the Qingkuan sect. The one who injured Yu Jingliang and the other three was President Lin, right? Also, I heard that Xue Jianfeng from the Snow Sword faction also had his Dantian destroyed by you. Xianijia confirmed. That's right. These two things are true. I didn't want to do anything to them, but they went too far and crossed the line. Naturally, they should suffer a little. Lin Yi nodded and said faintly, the secular world has its own rules. If the Archaic Alliance wants to pick disciples from the secular world, it's fine. As long as the cultivators themselves agree, we won't stop you. However, if you want to forcefully take them, then there's nothing more to say. I know a little about what happened in Shuegu. It was indeed the sect of Qingkuan that acted impulsively and turned a good thing into a bad thing. They have nothing to say about being beaten up. As for the matter of Xue Jianfeng, they went straight to Lin Yi. It's reasonable for Lin Yi to destroy his Dantian in a fit of rage. I have nothing to say about that. Xianijia admitted to the two things without hesitation. On the one hand, he was in the wrong, and on the other hand, it had nothing to do with him. Anyway, it was not the people of his Green Cloud sect in the North Island who got hurt. The leading senior brothers of these sects were unreliable, so they could not blame others, let alone Xianijia. Elder Xian is indeed a reasonable man. Lin Yi was a little surprised. Xianijia nodded. He was relieved that Xianijia was so easygoing. He hated those who thought highly of themselves but refused to admit their mistakes. If they couldn't be reasoned with, they could only solve it with their fists. That was the last thing he wanted to see. However, regarding the matter of Yin Jiping's son Bai Mei from the evil warding sect, Lin Yi killed them without hesitation. Isn't that a little unreasonable? Xianijia's face darkened. He didn't care if the people from other sects were injured or disabled, but it was different when two people were killed. As the person in charge of the team, he would be punished by the Archaic Alliance if he didn't have a reasonable reason. I'm a primordial spirit cultivator. The two of them attacked me immediately. Elder Xian, you should know what they wanted to do, right? Since they wanted to devour me, I had to kill them out of self-defense. Is there anything wrong with that? Lin Yi asked back. This. Xianijia was at a loss for words. Self-defense was justified no matter where it was. Even in the archaic underworld, there wouldn't be a different result. Since the two of them wanted to kill Lin Yi, they naturally had to be prepared to be killed by Lin Yi. Even if they died, it would be in vain. If Elder Xian thinks that I deserve to be devoured by them, then I'm afraid there's no need for us to talk anymore. I'll make it clear first. No matter who wants to hurt me or the people around me, I will kill him without hesitation. Remember, no matter who it is, Lin Yi said in a tough tone. Xianijia took a deep look at him. At this moment, he suddenly felt an inexplicable aura. It wasn't the kind of aura that could tell one's cultivation level, but he vaguely felt that the person in front of him was an unfathomable supermaster. Logically speaking, as a master in the early stage of Gold Core realm, he was already invincible in the secular world. However, at this moment, his heart trembled instinctively. He felt that he was like a lowly ant in front of the person in front of him. His life and death were in the hands of the person in front of him, and he had no power to resist. How is this possible? Xianijia was stunned. He shook his head hard in disbelief. Although his intuition had always been very accurate, this sudden thought was too ridiculous. Not to mention in the secular world, even in the Archaic Alliance, a master in the early stage of Gold Core realm like him was not a lowly existence. Although his strength was far inferior to those old monsters in the nascent soul realm, it was basically impossible for him to be easily killed like an ant. What did you say? Lin Yi's expression changed. He thought that the person in front of him was refuting him. If this went on, it would be impossible for them to come to an agreement. Although it was the last resort, he had no choice but to fight. Chapter 5082. Oh, it's nothing. Xianijia came back to his senses. He shook his head and said, "Don't be nervous, President Lin. In fact, I don't think it's wrong for you to kill Yin Jiping and Sun Baimei. It's unwise to destroy the good relationship between the Archaic Alliance and the secular world because of this." That's good. Thank you for your understanding, Elder Xian. Lin Yi and Ling Shan looked at each other and breathed out in relief. I'm just stating the facts, not trying to do you a favor, so you don't have to thank me. Xianijia said calmly. That moment was just an illusion, but it made him believe that Lin Yi had a powerful background, so he didn't want to make an enemy out of him. There was no need to make an enemy out of him over something so unimportant. Of course, there was another reason. Evil Warding Sect wasn't considered strong in Archaic Alliance, and they had always been weird and unreasonable. They weren't very popular in Archaic Alliance, and they made enemies everywhere. Naturally, he wouldn't stand up for two dead people from Evil Warding Sect, but if it were a mainstream sect like Snow Sword School, his attitude might change. With Elder Xian's status, it's already a blessing for the common world to be able to be impartial and talk about the facts. If it were someone else, it wouldn't be easy. Lin Yi smiled faintly. From the beginning until now, Xianijia had accepted almost everything Lin Yi said. Although it was true, it was rare for an early-stage Golden Core expert of the Archaic Alliance to listen to him calmly. Lin Yi's impression of Xianijia had improved a lot. Xianijia's attitude towards Lin Yi improved a lot. You're being too polite, President Lin. In fact, the Archaic Alliance has always been separated from the secular world. It's just that the two worlds are separated from each other. It can be said that we share the same origin, so we've never had any hostile thoughts towards the secular world. Instead of saying that this trip to the secular world is an experience for the disciples of each sect, it's more like a homecoming, said Xianijia with the intention of building a closer relationship. Since that's the case, I hope Elder Xian can restrain the disciples of the Archaic Alliance so that they don't cause trouble again and again. Lin Yi sternly said. To be honest with you, President Lin, we, the Archaic Alliance, have already made it clear that no disciple is allowed to destroy the order of the secular world. The reason for these conflicts is just because of the difference in background between the two parties. There's no malice at all, Xianijia evaded. The difference in background is understandable, but there is also an old saying that when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Just now, Elder Xian also said that you are returning home, so you should abide by the rules of the secular world, right? Lin Yi said lightly. Speaking of when in Rome, do as the Romans do, I have a question. In the cultivation world, seniority had always been determined by strength. Enchanting was just a disciple in the early stage of Gold Core. In front of him, a master in the early stage of Mystic class, he was naturally a junior. What he said was true. However, Enchanting didn't believe what Lin Yi said. He thought that Lin Yi might be a genuine primordial soul, but it was too ridiculous to say that he was the ancestor of the Blue Cloud sect's North Island's Blue Cloud sect. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? President Lin, you don't have to treat me like a 3-year-old kid, do you? Enchanting sneered. He was from the Blue Cloud sect's North Island, so he said that he was the ancestor of the Blue Cloud sect's North Island's Blue Cloud sect. If he was from the Snow Sword faction, this guy would probably be the ancestor of the Snow Sword faction. It was just taking advantage of the situation. Who didn't know that? The Blue Cloud sect's North Island's cultivation method is Blue Cloud Calming Spell, Lin Yi said lightly. Chapter 5083. To be a man of Blue Cloud, I have 3 signs and 6 orifices. Lin Yi said word by word in a calm tone. This was the basic mantra that Meng Jueguang taught them when they first entered the Welcome Pavilion. Every disciple of the Blue Cloud Pavilion had a copy, but most of them just looked at it. Very few of them put in the effort to practice it. After all, it was not a profound cultivation method. Lin Yi, of course, wasn't going to waste his time on this, but he'd done some research on it before, and he had a photographic memory too, so he was able to memorize it easily. Initially, Enchanting had a disdainful look on his face. However, his expression changed when he heard the original version of the Green Cloud Calming Spell. However, he did not believe it. Although outsiders usually only knew the name of the Green Cloud Calming Spell, very few of them knew the specific mantra. However, there were always exceptions. There were so many disciples of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island. It was not strange for someone to accidentally leak the Green Cloud Calming Spell. If someone could pretend to be a senior of the sect just by reciting a few mantra, Enchanting would be a fool. You don't have to lie to yourself anymore. Enchanting was about to stop Lin Yi, but he was stunned. The Green Cloud Calming Spell that Lin Yi recited seemed to be slightly different from what he knew. Although 99% of it was the same, there were a few minor but crucial changes. Enchanting relied on the spell of Clear Cloud Heart Calming to reach his current level of strength. He knew everything about the spell of Clear Cloud Heart Calming. If it was someone else, they might laugh at Lin Yi for being an unprofessional liar who could not even recite the incantation correctly. However, Enchanting knew that Lin Yi was reciting the real spell of Clear Cloud Heart Calming. No wonder I felt something was wrong when I was practicing. It turns out that the mantra is wrong. It's obviously smoother after the changes. Enchanting could not help but murmur. Meanwhile, Lin Yi was still reciting. Enchanting was shocked again as he listened. What? There's more? There's a mantra for the Gold Core realm? The Green Cloud Calming Spell only had 353 words. Theoretically, it could only be used to the full completion of Foundation establishment. In other words, disciples like him who had cultivated to the early stage of the Gold Core realm had to change to a higher level. However, the length of Lin Yi's recitation was already more than 500 words. The rest was the mantra for the Gold Core realm. It wouldn't mean anything if he just memorized the Clear Cloud Heart Calming mantra word for word, but now, not only did he memorize the original version, he even had the mantra for the Golden Core stage. This wasn't something that an outsider could do. There was only one explanation. Lin Yi was indeed a disciple of the Green Cloud sect in the North Island. Moreover, he was much older than Enchanting, so he knew the original version of the Green Cloud Calming Spell. As for the ready-made Green Cloud Calming Spell of the Green Cloud sect in the North Island, it was just an incomplete version left behind after the turmoil of the sect. After Lin Yi had recited more than 800 words of the Green Cloud Calming Spell, Enchanting finally did not hesitate anymore. He knelt down on the spot and saluted in fear and trepidation. So you're really the ancestor of the Green Cloud sect in the North Island? I was blind to have offended you. Please punish me, Grand Uncle Master. It's nothing. Ignorance is not a crime. Get up. Lin Yi waved his hand faintly, but let out a sigh of relief inwardly. It was fortunate that he hadn't gambled wrongly. The art of calming heart that hadn't been of much use before was now of great use. Having a good memory really did have a lot of benefits. Yes, thank you, Grand Uncle Master. Xinejia immediately got up respectfully. His expression when looking at Lin Yi was no longer as superior as before. Instead, his attitude was extremely humble. The rules of the three sects in the North Island were strict. The person in front of him was a real ancestor senior who had mastered the original version of the green cloud calming spell. He might even know more mental cultivation methods that had been lost. He was a living treasure to the entire green cloud sect in the North Island. Xinejia had no choice but to be respectful. Looking at Xinejia's attitude, Lin Yi suddenly felt that his risk this time was too wise. Although failure would definitely cause Xinejia's hostility, high risk also meant high reward. Now that he had become Xinejia's Grand Uncle Master, the problem between the secular world and the Archaic Alliance would naturally be solved. Not only that, Xinejia's reaction also confirmed all of Lin Yi's previous speculations. At least one thing was confirmed, that the Green Cloud sect in the North Island of the Archaic Alliance and the Blue Cloud Pavilion in the North Island of the Heavenly Stage Island were indeed of the same origin. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to share the Green Cloud calming spell, which was an iconic mental cultivation method. Similarly, the Soaring sect and the Xuanji sect in the North Island were probably in the same situation. Lin Yi privately speculated that there should be two possibilities. Maybe the people who founded the three sects in the North Island of the Archaic Alliance actually came from the three pavilions in the North Island of the Heavenly Stage Island. That was why the names and mental cultivation methods of the three sects were exactly the same. Of course, the reverse was not completely impossible, but judging from the disparity in strength between the two sects, the possibility was really very small. It was impossible to say that a group of people came from the three sects in the North Island of the Archaic Alliance, ran to the Heavenly Stage Island, and suddenly increased their strength and brought the three pavilions to greater heights, right? However, the two together could only be regarded as the same possibility. Lin Yi had another more daring speculation in his mind. Perhaps in the distant Archaic era, the Heavenly Stage Island and the Archaic Small Underworld were originally the same place. Then one day, due to a sudden change, the place was split into two isolated planes. One of them was called the Heavenly Stage Island, and the other was called the Archaic Small Underworld. The sects in these two places were of the same origin, and should have been about the same level. However, because the spiritual chi in the Archaic Small Underworld was far inferior to that of the Heavenly Stage Island, it gradually declined. Day after day, year after year, it formed the current situation. Both of these possibilities existed, but Lin Yi was more inclined to the latter because if the ancestors of the Archaic Alliance came from the Heavenly Stage Island, they would inevitably leave behind clear records about the Heavenly Stage Island. Now that the Heavenly Stage Island was considered to be nothing more than a rumor in the Archaic Small Underworld, it could be seen that this possibility was not high. However, the second possibility was more likely to explain all of this. After the two sects split, they did not know the specific situation of the other side, and they might even think that the other side had already been destroyed. As time passed, naturally no one would mention it, and there would not be any clear records left, which led to the current situation. Chapter 5084. Jia, although I'm from the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island, I've been in the secular world for so many years. I don't want to meddle in other people's business anymore. Now that I've revealed my identity to you, I have to ask about the current situation of the Archaic Alliance. Tell me the general situation. Lin Yi seized the opportunity to ask. Yes. Xinejia was not surprised. He thought that since Lin Yi was the ancestral master of the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island, he should go back to the Blue Cloud sect to have a look after his identity was revealed. Of course, he had to learn more about the Archaic Alliance. He asked, "What do you want to know?" "Just tell me about the current power structure of the Archaic Alliance." Lin Yi said faintly. This was the most basic and important information. Only by understanding it in detail could he have a clear idea of the real strength of the Archaic Alliance. Knowing oneself and knowing the enemy would provide a reference for future countermeasures. All right. All the forces in the primordial underworld are divided into two types, the sects and the clans. Among all the sects and clans, the top 4 sects and clans are followed by the top 10 sects and clans, followed by some ordinary cultivation sects and clans, Enchanting explained. Oh. How do you differentiate the 4 major sects and families, the 10 small sects and families, and ordinary sects and families? Lin Yi asked carefully. Of course, it's based on the strength of each sect and family. In addition to the basic number of disciples and strength, the most important criterion is the number of top masters in each sect and family. To put it bluntly, it's actually the number of nascent soul realm old monsters. Enchanting continued. Tell me more. This was the question that Lin Yi was most concerned about. It seemed that the most powerful people in the Archaic Alliance were in the nascent soul realm. However, he had to hear more about the exact number. Each of the 4 most powerful sects and families has at least 3 old monsters in the nascent soul realm, while the next 10 small sects and families have more or less 1 or 2 old monsters in the nascent soul realm. Just like our Blue Cloud sect in the North Island, we have 1 old monster in the nascent soul realm, who is the Grand Supreme Elder who is currently in closed-door training. That's why we can be one of the 10 small sects and families. If we don't have old monsters in the nascent soul realm, we can only be ordinary sects and families, Enchanting said. Lin Yi couldn't help but feel shocked. Since the disciples of the Archaic Alliance who came to the secular world were only at the Foundation establishment stage, and even Enchanting, who was responsible for leading the team, was only at the early stage of Gold Core, he thought that even if there were nascent soul old monsters in the Archaic Alliance, there would be very few of them. However, according to what Enchanting said, there were at least 20 to 30 old monsters in the Archaic Alliance. This number was incomparable to the Heaven Stage Island, which was full of experts. However, it was much better than what Lin Yi had imagined. According to what Enchanting said, the Archaic Alliance should not be underestimated. 2 years ago, old monsters in the nascent soul realm were people that Lin Yi had to look up to. Even on the Heaven Stage Island, they could become the elders of a sect. He didn't expect that there were so many of them in the Archaic Alliance. Blue Cloud sect is one of the 10 small sects and families. How are Rising Sky sect and Xuanji sect doing now? Lin Yi asked. Rising Sky sect has 2 old monsters in the nascent soul realm, which is also one of the 10 small sects and families. As for Xuanji sect, it hasn't been doing well in the past 2 years. The original old monster in the nascent soul realm is missing, so it was removed from the 10 small sects and families. Now, it can only be regarded as an ordinary sect. Enchanting sighed. The 3 sects of the North Island were like brothers. Although there were all kinds of open and secret fights between them, they were always united against outsiders. Although they could only be ranked as one of the 10 small sects and families, if the 3 sects of the North Island were put together, even the most powerful 4 sects and families would not dare to underestimate them. Now that Xuanji sect had declined, it was inevitable that they would feel interdependent. By the way, there's a question I wanted to ask just now. Why did you add the North Island before the 3 sects? Is there another island in the Archaic underworld? Lin Yi asked thoughtfully. Oh, there's a question I wanted to ask just now. Why did you add the North Island before the 3 sects? Is there another island in the Archaic underworld? Lin Yi asked thoughtfully. Enchanting suddenly became suspicious. However, since Lin Yi had just recited the entire original version of the green cloud calming technique to him, he did not suspect that Lin Yi was a liar again. He just felt that Lin Yi's question was strange. No, at least during my time, it was only called Blue Cloud Sect, but I wouldn't add the North Island in front of it. Lin Yi made up a story in a serious manner. He was sure that Enchanting did not know much about the archaic era. After all, it was hard to verify this kind of thing, unless he could find the real seniors of the sect who survived from the archaic era and confront them face to face. Even then, Lin Yi could make up a story without thinking. No one would really care about this kind of thing that had nothing to do with core interests. Well, Enchanting was stumped by the question as expected. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. Although I'm already an elder in the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island, I really don't know much about these things. I only know that I've been called the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island since I was young. But it's normal. After all, geographically speaking, the three sects are located in the north of the archaic underworld. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's the North Island across the lake. Besides, the three sects of the North Island also belong to the Cultivation North Alliance. The Cultivation North Alliance? Lin Yi was stunned. Yes, the Archaic Alliance is just a unified name. In fact, it's made up of 5 top forces. They are divided into East, West, South, North, and Central. The 3 sects of the North Island and some other sects and families belong to the Cultivation North Island Alliance, also known as the Cultivation North Alliance. Meanwhile, the Snow Sword faction and the Thousand Blades faction belong to the Cultivation Central Alliance. The Qinkuan sect and the Evil Warding sect belong to the Cultivation South Alliance. There's also the Cultivation ASEAN Alliance and the Cultivation West Alliance, Enchanting explained. Lin Yi was completely speechless. Wasn't this just a copy of the 5 major islands of Heaven stage? Other than some differences in details, the overall layout was almost the same. Now, he was even more convinced of his bold conjecture that the Heaven Stage Island and the archaic underworld came from the same mother's womb. Grand Master, the strength of the Grand Five Alliance is determined by the strength of the sects and families under its jurisdiction. Other than that, the Grand Five Alliance also has exclusive forces. But I don't know much about them. Only by joining the elders of the Alliance can I get hold of these core secrets. My current level is far from enough, Enchanting said embarrassedly. Chapter 5085. The only reason he was able to become the person in charge of the training in the mortal world was because the people from the Archaic Alliance had their eyes on the top of their heads. They simply didn't place the mortal world in their eyes. If it really was a lucrative job, it wouldn't have fallen to him even in 10,000 years. All right, I got it. Lin Yi nodded. Being able to learn so much from Enchanting was already a pleasant surprise. He only wanted to get a rough idea of the Archaic Alliance's strength. As for the deeper secrets, he didn't need to dig into them as it was useless at the moment. That's all I know about the power structure of the archaic underworld. I wonder if there's anything else you want to know? Enchanting asked respectfully. Not at the moment. I'll look for you in the future. Lin Yi waved his hand and went back to the topic. Let's talk about the secular world today. It's understandable that the Archaic Alliance wants to recruit new disciples with sufficient qualifications, but don't look for people blindly. If we make things clear, I believe many cultivators in the secular world will want to go. There's no need to make the relationship so tense as it will only backfire. Low-level cultivators always yearned for higher levels. This was common sense. Back then, Heavenly Stage Island had only sent Southern Aurora Polaris as a symbolic guide, but everyone still wanted to go in. Now, it was the same logic in the Archaic Alliance. It was just that Xue Jianfeng, Yu Jingliang, and the others were too overbearing and unyielding. They didn't treat the cultivators of the secular world as humans, so naturally, no one was willing to follow them. You're right, Grand Master. I didn't expect the sects to act so recklessly. I've repeatedly ordered not to disturb the order of the secular world, but it still turned out to be like this. I'll go back and make an appearance. I'll gather all the training disciples and forbid them from messing around in the secular world, Enchanting said sincerely. Alright, thank you for your hard work. Lin Yi nodded, thinking that the identity of Grandmaster was indeed different. Although Xianijia was easy to talk to, he would not agree to this kind of thing immediately. He would definitely use all sorts of excuses. It was worth it that a mere jade cloud calming technique could be so useful. I'll take my leave now. I'll pay my respects to Grandmaster another day. Xianijia stood up and said. Take care, I won't be sending you off. Lin Yi smiled and personally escorted Xianijia out of the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. Looking at Xianijia's receding figure, Lin Yi let out a sigh of relief. Today's ordeal was finally over. What do you think? Did you deceive that person? Ling Shan said with a smile. She could tell from Lin Yi and Xianijia's expressions that today's negotiation was going to be a success. How could it be a lie? I'm just stating the facts and reasoning with him, okay? Lin Yi curled his lips. Really? Ling Shan's face was full of disbelief. Xianijia looked easier to talk to than Xue Jianfeng, but the superiority of the archaic alliance was ingrained in their bones. She didn't believe that Xianijia would be able to convince them so easily. Of course it's true. If it was someone else telling him this, it might be useless, but I'm his martial granduncle. If he doesn't listen to me, wouldn't that be disgraceful? Lin Yi asked with a smile. You're his master? Ling Shan's jaw almost dropped to the floor. Unbelievable. I don't really believe it myself, but he's willing to believe it. There's nothing I can do about it. Since he's so sincere, I'll just take the loss. It's all for the common world, after all, Lin Yi said with a, who's going to hell if I don't go to hell, face. Ha 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 ha. Ling Shan almost couldn't hold back her laughter when she saw that funny face of his. She tricked him into becoming his master's master, and he still felt like he was taking the loss? Then what about this grand disciple of hers? Did he take advantage of her? You're a girl, after all. Do you have to be that carefree in public? I can see you eating breakfast, Lin Yi said with a smile as he looked at Ling Shan's laughing face. Ah. Ling Shan jumped in fright and covered her mouth, only reacting when she saw Lin Yi's weird smile. She punched him, blushing as she lowered her head. If you don't like it, then I won't smile like this. Don't, I'm not used to a dumb girl like you smiling without showing your teeth. It's good to be carefree, you're cute when you're heartless, Lin Yi said. Who's heartless? Ling Shan grumbled, but her face was still filled with happiness. Evidently, she was overjoyed at the last 4 words. Alright, let's get down to business. Send a summons to all the sects and families in the common world, we need to gather all of them. Xianijia's done talking with him, but we don't know how far he'll be able to keep the Archaic Alliance disciples in check. We need to prepare ourselves, Lin Yi said seriously. Alright, should we notify the ancient sects? Ling Shan hesitated. The Bureau's jurisdiction was limited to the common world and the hidden world. They didn't have much control over the ancient sections. At most, they could just send a message if something happened, but they might not necessarily give them face. Of course, use my name to notify them. We'll use this chance to re-establish the Bureau's position in the common world. Lin Yi nodded. If it weren't for this incident, the ancient sects might not have been willing to cooperate with the Bureau, and Lin Yi might not even have been able to summon them. But now that they'd all lost to the Archaic Alliance, only Lin Yi could stand up for them. They had to come even if they didn't want to. As expected, all the ancient sects, ancient, hidden, and common worlds gathered when the Bureau sent out the summons on behalf of Lin Yi. They all accepted Lin Yi wholeheartedly, saying that they would only listen to the Cultivators' Union. Lin Yi's strength was already outstanding even before he went to Sky Class Island, and now he was so strong that they couldn't even look up to him. There was also the Archaic Alliance eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey. No one in charge of an area was an idiot, and they naturally knew what to choose. If they didn't hug Lin Yi's thigh tightly now, they'd be waiting for their names to be removed. You're really resourceful. I wouldn't even dare think about reporting to the Occult Investigation Department if it was before, but I'm actually so obedient this time. Ling Shan covered her mouth and smiled as she looked at the group of people trying to get to know each other. Times have changed, a wise man submits to circumstances. Lin Yi smiled faintly. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.